Right, so what stage are we at now?
Keith Lee is gonna.
Are you going to give a presentation report?
Yeah. Okay, are you ready to go?
Oh, thank you. I'll take the report as read. So I just want to reiterate thanks to all the submitters who provided written submissions and those that spoke today. So we went out from consultation for the proposed speed limit changes from the 1st of December 23 to the 11th of February 2024. And that was quite an extended period of time, particularly around allowing the schools time to submit with the Christmas break in there. So there was 2 different surveys out, and we received 84 responses with regards to survey 1, the extent of the school speed zones, and 126 responses received in relation to the survey 2, the community speed limits. So the appendices today has the full analysis of the consultation data, copies of all written submissions and the maps. And during our consultation period, the guidance from central government changed, and word come out around a change to the speed limit rule, but our proposed changes were largely in line with those changes proposed from central government, and that is around having those variable speed limit signage provisions for schools, so for when kids come and go from school, having those in place, and largely around not having blanket speed limit changes in place, and ours were quite targeted to specific roads where there was a safety or a need or a request from public to consult on those. I guess the in terms of through the chair, is potentially the easiest way to go through this is from page 103 onwards. There is the maps that we can work through on a map by map basis, and what we're looking for today is for the panel to consider the submissions and decides on the action that should be taken against each of those changes, and then this will form a recommendation to council in the final form of the speed management plan for adoption.
Okay, Rachel's just got a question for you, QP.
Yes.
Hi, QP. Just a question in relation to the financial considerations.
Yes.
Everything that is considered under the plan, which I understand what you've done. How significant if we make if a different course of action is taken today? What's that going to do to the annual plan?
So we have the funding for this financial period to purchase the VSL signs for the schools. It's given the lead in time on those, it's potentially touch and go if they'll be up and be able to be installed by the end of the year. We do have some provision to continue the rollout in the in the next annual plan 24-25 annual plan budget that has been presented through that workshop. There is provision in there for undertaking the signage change. All the local road signage change is quite minor. If the panel wish to consider a recommendation to council around pies and moorings consultation or consideration of that, it's relatively a low cost advertising exercise and would be done by in-house staff for that one.
Okay, so what you're saying is that at the moment there's not going to be too much change in relation to financial considerations.
No.
Thank you.
No, we had budgeted for the school speed signage as part of this current long-term plan. Or it's in this current long-term plan, this year's proposal.
Cool. Right, and my computer is just frozen up, but otherwise we go to, was it 103?
Line up the maps with the, you know, which pages of comments relate to the maps, QP? Have you got a table on that at all?
I do. I've got it all printed here. One moment, I had a different one up as I do today. They relate in exactly the same order for this one. So So Clyde is page 36
Awesome.
regards to the comments. And just in relation to the survey results, there were 56 in support and 32 against these changes, and it incorporates a change for Sunderland Street, Mutton Town Road and Hospital Road.
Having problems getting my going here. Right down there. Far away, Tracy, we miss the
Okay, so just, so we're looking at Clyde to start off with. So that's page 103.
Correct. That's for the map.
Yeah, and we've got, okay,
36 for the comments.
yeah, got those here. Emma, is there anything that you want to?
Yeah, I'm not sure around that parking of Mutton Town Road. Did we have any consultation, feedback come back around that area? I can understand the rationale of moving that 50 out to encompass those 2 new subdivisions. But then once you go beyond that to what is effectively a dead end road if you're travelling south, just wondered if any feedback had come back from that end of the road. If we can. Not sure if you can tell me any of.
Not that I can ascertain from the comments. And we did have a look at that. But yeah, it's not able to be ascertained from the comments. I guess a little bit of the theme of the comments was around the Sunderland Street not serving potentially lots of driveways. But in that reduction, it was around trying to align the signage as best and clear as possible to not have changes upon changes, because as you alluded to, the 2 new developments there are going to put significant traffic onto Mutton Town Road in that intersection with Sunderland, and the sort of 50 through there was to ensure there wasn't changing limit after changing limit through that area.
So this map we've got here, 106, 103 is proposed
Correct.
change. Yeah. Any question? Start, Lois?
I think I could speak to one part of the change. I mean, originally when the speed management setting the speed limit rule 2022 eventually found its way into us using it, one of the things we were being asked to do with the speed management planning was look at all 70Ks for a consistent approach, probably with the view of were there going to be some out there that were better at 80, but were they actually fulfilling? So effectively a lot have been looked at from the point of view of would they actually be better as 50, 60 or 80, depending on what that particular road use is. Whether that need to review 70K and our speed limits will stay long term is entirely up for debate. We won't know until we see setting a speed limit 2024. But there are some things in here that were a reaction to a specific direction that was received, and particularly you actually see pedestrian openings from Orham Lifestyle Village now, and the way that the intersection reacts and where the footpaths are planned to go and things like that. And I think there is this expectation that you'll see higher non-vehicle usage of this area of Clyde. If you don't already see it, you do see people walking those verges, and I know the road reserve here is incredibly wide, but it was probably the 70, the moving to 50 is to a response to town effectively growing into that space.
So pretty much everyone's happy with that then?
Well, I just want to get some thoughts on that Sunderland Street part. I think I agree with that 50 coming along Mutton Town Road, that first part of Mutton Town Road, this bit along here, because this is where both those new subdivisions open onto. But this intersection here, traffic effectively has to stop to turn around that corner anyway onto Sunderland Street.
Yeah.
And there is already, there is only one road access onto Sunderland Street, which is the bottom of, whatever that street there is called, Albert, not Albert, whatever. That one,
Yeah.
and the rest is all, those are all the access points that are going to be along there. I understand the interest in keeping the 50k the same for continuity around there, but I just don't know that it necessarily serves a safety purpose on Sunderland Street.
Just
which is
to
horrible.
add to that, there is also a pedestrian access out of the Clyde 98 Sunderland Park subdivision onto Sunderland, as well as the front access from Mutton Town as well. So there is potentially going to be pedestrian crossing points, as in pedestrians crossing, not pedestrian crossings, but across Sunderland Street in that area.
Right.
Chrissy?
Yeah, I'm just a little bit, I guess. For me, that the 80k zone on Mutton Town Road, I wonder if we're going to see, just given the level of development that's going to happen along there. When it is one part there, obviously the two bits that are closer towards the Sunderland Street end are all being developed now. But that whole road's going to end up being developed at some point, especially under the spatial plan and how that looks. Are we going to come back? Is it something that we're going to come back? They're going to come back to us and ask us to reduce it again, because you have to slow down to literally nothing to come around that corner where you can exit off the main highway into that road. We haven't gone out to that.
But is it okay they do come back? What's all of that? As the development happens.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you can.
We go through this every year, as you know.
Okay.
So what can, as the development happens, we come back to it.
Yeah, we can.
It's noted. We understand what's happening, but the real risk is we start shutting down the speed into parts of towns that aren't towns yet.
Yeah, and even though like there is, you know, a high likelihood, there's a very high likelihood that those larger parcels of land will get developed into something a little bit more intensive, you know, who knows when.
Mm.
You know, personally, I think it's probably not a bad way to go. Like you said, Stu, we do have the ability to review this
Yeah.
every year.
Yeah.
Um,
We're better off in a lot of ways doing that and reacting to actually what is happening and trying to preempt what's going to happen.
yeah,
So that we're going to avoid a lot of people if we get it wrong.
And there is that challenge with the 80k. I think it's fair to speak to the 80k that was originally formed with the understanding of what was going to happen at the Mutton Town SH8 intersection and Wakakatai wider plans for SH8. Wakakatai through the State Highway Speed Management Plan, that has completely come off the table at this point until they, whilst nobody's really had any full guidance. So I think effectively State Highway are not going to make any further moves on any of their plans until setting the speed limits 2024. If that's what we get, until that is, they won't make any approaches. So it was looking for consistency in that there was Young's Lane cams in at 80, expecting, but that's further down SH8, but there was an wider expectation that the whole section here through the various turnings for Clyde and the Springvale turning would be reduced to 80. That's not actually transpiring yet.
All right, so we just make the changes and move on?
Yeah.
With the proposal?
There's no change for Mutton Town.
What is that? No? Well, that's
For all Mutton
So
Town.
you mean no change to the proposal that we're looking at here? That's what you mean when we say no change?
Or, no, probably easier to say what's the change from what it is now. So it's 100 there now, isn't it? So
Would you like to say accept that map, or don't accept that map, or accept that map with changes? Is that gonna be easier to get?
Yeah.
Should we go that?
yeah, we'll go back. you look at what either is currently.
Yeah, so let's just say,
Except this map as it
except
is.
this map.
So the next line, all through, or right on my floor?
Also Clyde North. Yep, so this encompasses Clyde North Access Road, Clyde Lookout Road, and Fruit Growers Road. Page 86 of has the survey results, and there is 48 in support and 37 against. And the comments are on page 33 regarding this one.
Just a note, QP, and I'm just, obviously, some of these, the for and against, some of these submissions that are, and irrespective of whether they're for or against, some of them are just the exact same comment, either for or against, with no real explanation. And it's very hard to, just because someone either likes it or doesn't like it, they haven't given us an explanation as to why. And I do find that a little bit harder to, you know, when we're reading into this, if we're just going to say, oh, there was 48 here and 24 there, there is a component of that that people have just answered without any explanation as to why. You got any comments on that?
Yes, and that makes the working out which way people have gone quite challenging. I mean, there was 85 people responded to this Clyde North piece. 27 people made a comment, and again, some of those comments are blanket comments across this whole piece. So it's hard to know if people who are very positive about speed limit changes just answered yes to everything without considering each of those sites in particular and roads they use every day. And that goes also for the no's and people dissatisfied or not wanting speeds to change and not being users of these roads as well. Answering no's to everything. So it does make this a challenge in that respect, and that's where I believe in reading the comments does help give an indication, but yeah, there's also 85 responses and only 27 comments as well, so it does make it challenging.
Currently 70, eh?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Correct, and this was another one of these that in consideration with the original rule around not having 70s in place and moving in increments of 20. However, I will just say with regards to Clyde North Access Road, it does hit the 30k of Clyde, and from some resident being in contact at that end, and we've got some traffic counters out there at the moment to understand the reduction in speed. A reduction from 60 to 30 inherently makes people slow down easier to get to 30 than it does from 70 when people enter that Clyde northern boundary. And then Fruit Growers Road has a massive increase in cycle traffic. There is the camping area there as well, and that just aligns that with the nature of the road.
When we talk about consistency and looking for that across the network, I'm just a bit worried about one side of that dam being 50 and the other side being 60. And I wondered what the rationale for that is. And,
So
and that why would Fruit Growers Road not go to 60? Recognising there is increased traffic on there and increased cyclists, but when we're looking for consistency for those semi-rural roads that carry other traffic, not just vehicles, what consistency are we looking for across the area?
That road is quite narrow. It does have a number of pinch points, so that road could even be, I guess, classed as even a lower, potentially lower speed environment. And I do understand the difference, but it was around the users of that road and the number of users of that road, whereas Clyde North Access Road is largely primarily vehicle based. It doesn't have the same cycle traffic and everything like that. Yeah.
There's an appetite to keep the other one
Here as well.
at 70.
It's 50 as well.
Yeah.
We talk for bridging out onto Escort Road.
Where's that 30 sign? Is it after Fruit Growers or before?
Just,
Just,
just after. There's a section of, Fruit Growers Road that is currently 50 temporary, where it slips, come down and goes down to one lane.
Yeah.
So
Bit like
the
that.
whole
Yeah.
section creates greater consistency. If
Yeah.
it was 60, you'd then have to signpost that section to 50, or continue to signpost that to 50.
Yeah. Is there an appetite to keep the coming off the state highway in those two spots at 70? And have you up there Fruit Grounds Road at 50, but then you've got a differential. 10K, is that enough to change everything? You're still gonna go down to your slight speed at the bottom, 30 into your main part of your town, but if you want a differential, 20K is far more differential than 10, if you want consistency.
Yeah, probably on the other side though, just going back to QP's point, Stu, is that, and inherently if people are travelling, if they're travelling 60K speed limit for that length coming down that hill, they will slow down a lot sooner when they have those 30Ks. Like 70 to 30 is quite, it's quite a big jump. It's like, yeah. To slow down and probably recognise those 30K signs when you're coming in. So yeah, that's the other way to look as well too. Is that speed differential?
Off a highway to go from, you're halving your speed from state highway to come into town, I suppose, if you're doing that everywhere.
And I guess that's, because of that 90-degree angle, you're slow right down anyway to get off the highway, regardless of which way you turn in.
So everyone's happy with that?
So, come on, can you just say that out loud again, please? As in what is, so you're saying this one, the Clyde North exit?
Well, my argument is 70 now, what are you achieving by changing 10 kilometres an hour, but like we're coming off a state of 9 degrees, you stop it anyway to 0 nearly, you're really, and you're going into 30. But you've got your differential between your green and your orange, really, like one side of the river you're doing 50K and the other.
Yeah.
The,
And then coming back to what QP's saying,
Yeah.
well, to the youth, that there's much more multimodal usage on
Yeah.
Fruit Growers Road than there is on
Correct.
Clyde Access. Like that's, you know, that's just warming the place.
yeah, so effectively the question is everyone happy with the map and the present floor? Cameras, you?
Yeah, well, that's 16, not 17.
Yeah, that's right, but it's 70 now.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm saying it's 10 kilometres an hour enough to change the whole thing. But listen to the advice the guys are saying, you're at 60, you've got to speed up to get to 70 to slow back to 30, because you come straight out of 70 to 30.
I drove that road yesterday morning and I probably went slower than even that because I was busy poking my nose around looking.
So that's like there's people peering out of their car windows at the jam.
Yeah.
Part of the problem, not the solution.
The issue is actually getting onto the main highway at certain times of the day.
Yeah.
It's not the road itself, it's the,
So you're
Yes.
the problem, not the solution. Rubbernecking.
Right.
Right.
Pulling out.
Is that what Nordic was happy with that?
Yeah.
Alexandra, interesting,
It's going.
you beat?
Yep. So page 105, Alexandra. The feedback in the survey come through at 49 for and 28 against. And I'm just trying to find the page for the comments.
So that's pretty self-explanatory though, isn't it, really? Been pushing that way?
Yes, correct. So Let's Gully Road, this was around just the growth in the number of driveways and the accesses coming off that piece of road. Ferris Road and Gilligan's Gully Road being both quite narrow roads climbing up each of those respective gullies. And that first section of Let's Gully where there is that smaller section size and quite a number of dwellings servicing that piece there. And there was quite positive response through the survey to those changes.
And I think too, there's a highlight that extreme growth on the right-hand side of Let's Gully Road.
Yeah.
And when the school bus goes up in the afternoon, it drops the kids on the left-hand side and they're having to cross the road in that 100K zone.
Yeah.
Currently, so
Cool. I'm happy with that,
that would be good.
Trace. And I guess it's worth noting those comments about Molyneux when we deal with that. I don't. Cool, so we'll vote you on that? Cool.
Yeah, and just with regards to those comments around Molyneux and Alexandra, I'm just, I propose we potentially add an additional recommendation to our report at the end around providing all submissions that relate to state highway corridors through to the Transport Agency. So those submissions can be considered by them in their development of their work, which unfortunately is a bit paused at the moment, as we've heard, but we'll make sure we have a recommendation to pass all those comments on.
So, sorry, just QP, with regards to that, do you need anything from this committee to say that we support, you know, that application or that submission?
We would have that opportunity through. So prior to the change in speed limit rule and well, prior to this, what Transport Agency was planning to come and speak to council about their proposed changes coming, but they have been put on hold for that. And my understanding, I believe this change that they were referring to was being considered, as well as the change in Roxburgh to that 80 where there is new development as well. The Transport Agency was working through those changes as part of their speed management process. So I believe they are in train, but I believe us passing our comments through, we will have an opportunity as a council to hear from the Transport Agency when those changes do come about or go out for consultation.
Oh, you was happy with that?
Yep.
Laura? 6, pretty status quo, isn't it?
Yep, so this was around that lowering that speed of that road to be in line, given the cafe and the cyclist use and everything on it. There were 52 in support and 19 against this, and it does extend slightly past where the cafe and that is, and that's just to get up that hill and around the corner to a straight, just to enable a safe place to have that change and speed occur.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a dairy tanker road as well too.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
And as Eco Seal gets chewed out in that top hill.
yeah, which is getting replaced.
Yeah, so it's probably very logical because they do shoot out that way. All right.
So do you anticipate that dropping that hill, which is quite steep in that corner to 60, will have a positive impact on the surface of the road as well, and you'll be able to maintain that to a high
I would better get up here when you have past
No,
that.
steep, yeah.
The only note is the cafe is no longer, at this stage, is not necessarily operating at the same capacity as it was,
Yeah,
but that's not to say that things in the future might, the cafe might.
And the state highway's down to 80 there too, it's a little
It
city.
is, it's at 80.
everyone doing the road toll that hasn't been there before goes there and has a pipe around the old railway station and you know, the storage stuff.
And the Lauder community have done a lot of work to bring the old railway there, so,
Yeah,
the old railway building, so yeah, it is actually quite well populated.
Cool, happy with that. Happy on walk. Well, what is it now? 100.
yeah.
Correct.
It's
So
a
this,
really long extension of the 50k area.
For the road.
so that is the end of that road in its entirety. It is a dead end section of road. Part of this small piece is a tidy up around where that McSkimming Road section moves in. It is currently incorrectly labelled in the National Land Speed Register, so there is a small tidy up piece. Then we have had some requests because there is some more development up that hill, so where the road sort of comes down and turns before you get to where Aitken Road is written on that map. There has been some new development through there, and then it does open up, but it is with nothing, or just being basically farm track through to the end of the road. It is quite a narrow gravel road through to the end of there, and it was requested by members of that community to have that road just as 50 through to the end. And driving that first section of road, it would be very challenging to go much faster than 50 up and around that first hill section, up to basically where Aitken Road is written on that map. But it does open up slightly past there.
Well,
But there's nothing past there anyway.
you'd hardly get a person going past a little bit of traffic, obviously.
Correct. It's just leads to basically a gate at the end, and it's largely farm.
And that feedback, I'm just looking through the things here, because lots of it's not specific to that, but
And that's where this is challenging, because this one is quite closely split with 22 for and actually 24 against. There is one comment from a person that holidays or resides there around just being safely walking and cycling for
I guess
pedestrians and cycling.
I think when you're talking about safely walking and cycling on a road that would be lucky to have more than a couple of traffic movements a day,
Yeah.
I think you,
It's about the process, though.
yeah, I mean, there is a lot of, I mean, that road is, Stu, that's your patch. So what are your thoughts?
Well, it's a nothing road from about 100 metres up Aiken Road anyway.
So why are we putting a speed limit on it? It just needs to be left alone.
We do need to do a tidy up by the bridge, where
Yeah.
the section across that bridge. The other option.
But the bridge isn't in Aiken Road, is that the water reserve up there?
It's where the Mixskimming Road comes across,
Across.
and where the swimming hole and the fish ladder is. There,
It
the
was
50s.
Yeah, the fish ladder's there. Yeah. So, but that's, but the relieving's done, the rest of it would be closed.
That's
Um,
not on the table.
looking at changing the nature of rural roads en masse, when, as Tracy says, when there's a couple of traffic movements a day and you're walking on the gravel road, you hear them coming, you move off the road. You've got a dog, you move your dog off the road,
Yeah.
let the car go past, and then you carry on.
I mean, I'm pretty sure we haven't, I can't recall, in my time seeing any, complaints around dust from residents. There are a few houses up here now that are sort of back off the road, off the road.
But there's a
So
lot of
any
people that
dust
live on
complaints,
dusty
yeah.
roads.
I was just worried that that would lead to an argument that, oh, Wheatley Road, that kind of goes nowhere, that has a pattern of people walking on it. What would Debbie say if he said?
I think it sets a dangerous precedent that every road that's dusty or rural, needs to be looked at. And I think that's not the message that we need to be sending.
So you propose to leave it the same.
I propose to leave it the same. Other than the
Fix that
repair,
little bit down the bottom,
We'll fix
that
it.
needs to be
Yeah.
fixed back.
fix that, QP mentioned,
Is that
Yes.
Mixskimming Road?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can provide an updated map for the recommendation to council. We can make sure an updated map's done. So on the map that you've got behind you, where sort of the D finishes on Mixskimming Road, it would be sort of a centimetre down from there, heading up Aitken Road. That would be the cut point where the current signage is actually displayed. In terms of just a formality tidy up, but the extent of Aitken Road would just go to the white-black line through it, open road speed, drive to the conditions signage.
Yeah.
Which would be, as you said, probably on that, on that probably a centimetre up from where, it crosses over the river.
Happy with that?
Yes, yeah, it's just on the just past the intersection with the bridge. There.
Yeah.
So QP, I've said, change the indicated part of Mixskimming Road, so the bit that you've got indicated there, and then leave Aitken Road unchanged. That sound?
Well, not.
I'd just leave, they can then leave as open road speed.
Yeah.
Would that be the right words?
Okay.
With a minor distant amendment at the Mixskimming Road end.
Okay.
Okay, brilliant.
If that is.
Well, the table 109 on one page, and we'll jump and figure it out. Oh, I'm gonna take that. Hang on. My file system. The Bathurst, look at that, 108. Yeah,
So there was
thoughts?
31 in support of this and 20 against. And I'll just find the page for the comments.
I just have a question.
Question,
I
David?
think the 30 part looks good, but I just wanted a bit more information around the extension of that 50, especially how far it goes down St Bathurst Road.
Andy, do you mind speaking to that one, given?
No, I'm absolutely happy to speak to those. So, the 50s are there to get, we're looking for 30 transitions, 100 to 30. Whilst there's nothing legal that stops a 100 to 30 speed limit change, the good practice and best practice is that simply shouldn't happen. Just you get so long that the change is so extreme, even if you've got lower travel speeds. So if we take the north end of St Bathans first, that has very strongly focused at trying to set this transition limit to appropriate minimum lengths, not going for too far, but keeping it away from. One of the things that we've worked very hard with the CADC plans is to not slap speed changes so close to curves that what you actually do is you actually create a completely different problem. That 50 effectively sits right in the middle of that straight as you come to the last turn into.
Yes.
I think that one's fine, because as soon as you get around the corner, you're in town effectively.
Yeah.
So is that about 200 metres-ish?
It's about 500.
500, okay.
But it's
So
down
then-
winding, obviously.
Yeah.
And then obviously you come around a sharp corner and then another
And then
bend, and then you hit the 30k sign, so.
Yeah.
It's about that, as Ian said, it's about that, getting that transition speed right to hit at 30.
Yeah.
And basically a road one that's got a lot of curves in it.
So
And
that's
that's where the 50 sign already is, Tim.
the north end of town one.
Is it right up top of the hill?
Yeah.
No, the south end.
See, I think.
Sorry.
That's where the current 50 sign actually is.
Oh, I think
The bottom of that one is
Yeah.
that far in.
Yes.
Yeah, no, the top one needs to on that bend, because you're coming into St Bathans anyway on a gravel road. That's a long way out, that first one, the north one. That one there is too far.
That's
That one there, I'd argue, should come round too, but the top one's a long way from the town.
Well, so that, I drove it, because I was going to the meeting about the speed limits in the town, so I drove the road. And that's where the existing 50 speed limit is where,
On this bottom one down here.
Yes.
yep, down there.
Because that was the only one, I mean, this one here makes sense, and
Yeah.
this one here to slow it down before, and that was the only one I was like, why am I so far
And-
out?
because
It'll be 3K.
Yeah, it's miles out of town. That corner there is a really bad corner. Yeah, it's because it's downhill on gravel and turning like this and everything.
But it is signposted.
Yeah, but the 50k sign is way out in the farm.
Yeah.
You also want good visibility of your signage, and it's actually quite windy.
It's one.
So they
of
put
the
the
things on
sign
the
currently is, and
That would be a
Is
spot.
there any data on what compliance with that 3 kilometres worth of 50 is like?
Sure.
To me, it's too far back out of town.
I agree.
It should
I
be-
drove it a week ago.
Yeah,
It's there. But I'll be looking for this one. I didn't.
yeah, it comes a while back.
It is winding and you cannot go very fast when you get to that closer.
And the hill, crown of that hill before you drop around that big corner would be a good place to 50k sign, because
Is that an intersection with a farm track or
that's
something?
a house there. It's a,
Yeah.
That one? Little road here.
that's
Yes,
just-
in fact, the one further south.
This one down here?
Yeah. In fact, both of those, you can see on the edge of that map. So there were access ways. There was a crash on those two access ways at the southern end some time ago, but I think it's now.
Because of President Holiday.
Because of the 5 years, it is this combination of that stuff. You actually get quite a lot of vertical undulating change.
Right.
In the road. That was always the point from where what we actually had, we had a number of issues on the downhill into
So
Bathrooms and bathrooms, which effectively starts, it's just on that curve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then you start there and you start down hard and obviously you come into the curve where people have come off. So that it sort of rolls over about 3 times. There's 3 sort of, and they're quite extreme. Certainly, I do remember when we put the 50 sign in that's currently there, we looked from put it in here and we couldn't find a location where it could be seen.
right.
So that was.
How long has it been 50 out there, do you remember?
Suggest 2018, it would be 1819, something like that.
And we haven't had any problems?
We've had no pushback on, and I would have said it has changed. It was a particular hot, dry summer. One of the things that also lined up with though was St Matthews Road eventually had its birthday remetalling along there. And although that had its own problems, that actually did bed in the following summer.
I'm gonna argue that it's too far out, because I drive there a lot, and I'm also responsible for car accidents there, and it's not speed that usually tips the cars out, it's a surface and not ability to drive on gravel roads. And to me, that crown just past here is probably a logical spot, come in before you come down the hill there. But as I know, exactly that is a long way out, and it's not far from this road section.
It's not that far from that intersection.
No, but it's, to me, that's only a person, it's not there, and the crashes that are there are not related to speed lines I've been to. It's when they get the car, small wee car, and battery cars are made it worse too, because they're a lot heavier and different.
Yeah.
And they're running off usually the gravel surface, but yeah.
So, sorry, you made a comment that one of the reasons why we went far back is because you couldn't find a suitable place where there was sufficient,
Pretty winding into here.
no visibility. So like,
Yeah.
I can't stand corner road and dip and also you have 50 minutes on, I can't actually see it.
You can't see it. Is there a minimum distance, visibility distance for a speed limit change sign?
Yes, yeah, that one would be we're supposed to be able to see it. If you're driving at 100, you should be able to appreciate that sign from 300 metres away from it,
Get that up.
in theory.
Right.
300 metres therefore will be at the top of the crown coming down the hill, correct? We were there. I just thinking it's too far back, because I know that would be 300 metres from that point to there. And I was just thinking, the real risk is too far.
We have things that change. These roadside environments in the rural areas do change over time. We certainly put the original 50k went in before it was gravelled, again, whether there is a spot now through there. I remember we looked really hard. You couldn't get something by the time you come through that curve.
There wasn't anywhere around that
There wasn't
intersection.
anywhere around that intersection that you could put it in. We didn't try going that far because you're already into, the worst thing we worry about is if you, another thing we're considering, if you're already on the steep slope and it is steep and then you present to people with the 50, again, in experience, people putting the brakes on hard and actually exacerbating the problem that they actually don't. They brake hard to comply with the sign.
But going up that point, I'm not doing any more than 60 or 70 anyway. I'm not going to get driving a lot. It just, I understand it's a fair way out.
The average suggested, so that data from the mega system suggested that it was 66 is the average travel speed.
It's not that fast.
It's not.
I've just been looking at Street View, and from this intersection here, you don't have visibility on there, so that doesn't give you 300 metres. There's a road sign here that once you're back here, disappears out of sight. So nowhere in there have you got 300 metres visibility.
But you will have the top of the hill to the township.
Top of the hill is
200 bend, up 200 there.
for here,
Yes.
isn't 300 metres.
It's
So
200.
you have to have your 100, we're talking about the 100 to 50,
Yeah.
and you need 300 metres visibility of that. That is about 300 metres, but then you're going from 100 to 50 to 30.
Yeah.
So you
And
really
you want
need.
traffic to be slowing for that corner anyway, don't you? That's the dodgy part.
Yes, so that's what, realistically, that's what you can debate, is that bit, down there.
Stu, let's measure it on Julie.
I know it does look quite far on this map, but this is also where the sign currently is, and it has operated since, and Andy mentioned sort of 2018, 2019, with no real complaint around that extent of that area. And it is a reasonably challenging undulating piece of road through there. And while I appreciate locals and people that drive on a gravel road daily, as the submitter spoke to, is there's a lot of tourism based activity and a lot of people coming into this area that potentially haven't driven on that. I would hate to see it, and I know it's a limit and people can drive below a limit, but a target set by having a higher speed limit through there, and that does sort of bring people's speed down through there. But yeah, our recommendation from an officer perspective would be that that's the safe and appropriate point to have the change.
Happy with that?
Kempi, can you just in relation to our submitters this morning, in relation to the request about looking, not that we've gone out for this, and I appreciate that, but the request for a reduction to 15. Can you just speak to that part, please, just so that we can have that in?
Limits lower than 30 get extremely challenging in the nature of the sort of infrastructure that you have to put in place as well. Andy actually may be in a slightly better place to talk about this. Andy, just from the infrastructure needs when you actually go below 30.
Yeah, so it's really, again, it's still guidance. There's very few things other than the numbers that you put on signs that do fix these things, but below 30 is supposed to come with positive calming and management, anything up to and including Queenstown CBD full shared spaces. Full shared spaces realistically is what you must be aiming for if you're going for a 10, which is essentially the 10k limit is everything moving at the same speed, walking speeds, full shared space. Central Otago hasn't gone for any 20s. There are very few 20s in New Zealand. Full stop. 15 is not a legal option.
Yeah.
So it would be 10 with almost a kind of investigation of St Bathans as a special kind of effectively cars and people and bikes and whatever else given equal right of way. And you would need things to create that environment.
So that would go against to what our submitter this morning said. He didn't want those type of things put in there because it would ruin it. So essentially, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that it's actually not possible for us to do it without changing some infrastructure around there.
I think it's effectively, I'd probably want to go as far as saying that it's certainly the idea of getting compliance of a very low speed environment is only by completely changing people's perception of what they're driving.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
And that's where you have that change in surface is quite important, that sort of textural change in the surfaces.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. Moving on to Cambrians. Thank you for that, QP.
Yep. So this one had 30 submitters for and 21 against. I'm trying to find where the comments are. Page 41 with relation to the comments. And there is actually a comment there, row 7, on behalf of group organisational company, the Cambrian Community, from Kim Hollenbon, noting that it's well overdue, and unfortunately she couldn't make the speaking slot today, but that just was one to note from the Cambrian Community there.
Yeah, and they came and asked, they did come and present to us last time about that.
Correct, they did, requesting that, and that was one why it was included this time round. And as we have discovered, there are some informal 40 km/h signs already installed along that section of road. So I think the community has been doing some self-installation and self-policing of that section of road to date.
I mean, additionally, that there is a bit of development starting to happen in there as well too. You will see more housing going in there as well too over the next probably 10 years or so.
I think the key point to note for this road is that it's not, it doesn't go
I
anywhere.
was just gonna say that.
The Cambridge Road just goes up. People that live in it have asked for it, and they've quite passionately asked for it.
And the people that are driving there that don't live there are driving to look
They
around.
look around, and they're not going like a bat out of hell because they're not trying to get through somewhere. So the reality is,
No, not you, don't get.
yeah. He could have his emergency on.
Yeah, but no, what, no,
If it's an
none of
emergency.
these are painting.
Okay. Whatever.
So we're happy with 40?
Yes, we haven't.
Lovely. Probably the first time I've read the national council for 40 minutes on the community program, so we're moving on. Takes pressure from the community. Cromwell North.
That's very
That's
good.
very good.
From the again, filing system. Yeah, right.
Cool, thank you. So this one had 31 in support and 19 against, and obviously the submit today talking on behalf of the community there. From my listening at this end of it, I understood that their submission aligns to what we have presented today, and then we would be looking at how our signage is laid out with that advance warning signage. From their recommendation, we'll be looking at that as part of this process anyway, and what signage, additional signage we do need in place. So yeah, I guess any questions relating to that one?
Yeah. QP, with that signage, which the additional signage, I actually think it's a good idea, but I am conscious that a lot of, we have had submitters telling us that, you know, we get signs for everything. So is there, I guess, I think the warning sign is actually quite helpful. If we had more electronic signs, dare I say it, with the smiley faces, how do you think, and this is not necessarily just for Turahua, but for our entire district, what impact would that, do you think that would that have on essentially just better flashing signage? How would that go?
I think that's a good compliance tool in terms of once you're actually in the limit in terms of testing that. They do come at quite a significant cost. But that is something that we could look at in terms of it really comes down to the compliance piece. I'm not sure, Andy, if you have any idea of cost around those getting installed, but I think my understanding is around $20,000 a sign.
I think usually by the time you've got power systems and check the sites, and the install costs, I mean, usually my understanding is the signs themselves have come down a bit, but simply purchasing the sign is a 5-figure sum. It's usually somewhere around 10 to 12.
Yeah, what you're talking about will be more expensive than the variable signage at schools, because that's simply displaying speed limit.
Yeah.
What you're talking about will have a radar to detect the speed,
Okay. Yeah.
which then requires a bigger battery and a solar panel and so on. So it's sort of slightly. So I think QP's suggestion that it could be in the vicinity of $20,000 could be reasonable
Per sign.
per sign. One of the things that we have informally discussed in the team is having one sign, but multiple poles, or one sensor, multiple poles, and we could potentially move it around as a, suppose, an additional tool to encourage enforcement if we're having challenges around our schools and things like places, high school locations.
I think this one's too far out. I think what's there is fine. It's come to the community board many times, been put into there. And Turahua, admittedly, there's a few more houses between the sports ground and the church. But when you come through to Beaker's hay barn there on the side, it's about the right place, but there's just a long way between through Turahua. There's a couple of Ks through Turahua from where that point is. Well, then the existing system works fine. They've driven very regularly,
Yes, this morning.
as this morning.
So it's just being extended from what it is now.
Yeah, it's a 70 at the top end.
Yeah, it takes the, slows it right up the top end of town, so then you're gonna have to put your 70 further back, if you just change it to 50.
The 70 wouldn't, the 70 is absorbed by the 50 share, but this proposal.
So you
So
come
you're
from
gonna,
100
what,
to
then you're gonna go from 100 to say, 100 straight to 50 at that intersection.
Okay.
But
I
the
thought you were gonna have to
idea,
put 70 out the other side, but you won't. You'll
no,
just
so
have-
the idea is to use the advanced
Advanced
signs that have worked well at Ophir,
Okay.
Omakau
Yeah.
and Springvale. Where you
I,
get,
I just think it's too far back, from where the existing 70 to 50, and 50 is fine. I think that system works,
Look at it, that domain now. Quite a lot of people there.
but it's 70 at the domain,
Yeah, so it would go to 50.
at the top of that intersection.
Yeah, but it wouldn't go to 70 on the other side. It would just go to 100 in the same place.
Correct.
Exactly.
Essentially, this change is just a swap out of the 70 to a 50 in terms of just, yeah, that's that 70 changing to a 50.
No.
And it'll only slow you by 20 k's an hour for that little bit at the end there. And is that a little bit at the south as well? That's a little bit further up.
Same place.
Sorry, QP, what were the numbers again?
30, 21.
3119. So 31 in support of the change and 19 against the change. But again, page 44 for those comments in relation to that.
And I don't think none of them live in a territory.
And lots of them aren't specific to.
But we did hear on behalf of the community group, yeah, and
Yeah.
they have reviewed, like they are in agreement with the proposal as presented, but we're just expressing their desire to ensure there is that advanced warning signage, which in going from 100 to 50 would be a requirement and isn't different to other areas of our district.
I'm happy with it that it's not extending it by another couple 100 metres with 70, just with that advanced warning and straight to 50 the same. Which is also quite long.
The change doesn't have to be accepted or rejected in entirety. I don't believe you could consider a partial extension, so not to the extent in the map.
Well, you bring Hill Street Road in for a start, which hasn't got a bridge on it. Well, it's got a bridge on it that's under the bridge.
Can we take out that Hills Creek Road part, or is that a requirement for the big traffic's coming to an intersection, so is slowing anyway?
Yeah, it was tying it into, you get that point where you're starting to react to, like you're preparing to cross the one lane bridge. Anyway, you could cut Hills Creek right back. It's one of those ones where it's extended to a sensible place to sign a 50k change without creating more clutter at an intersection. But at the same time, that intersection doesn't need much advanced signage. You would need to. There are 70k signs. About where that's extended to, the 70k's aren't close to the intersection.
There's no need to have Hills Creek on there at all, I don't think, because it's a gravel road. You're coming onto an intersection over a bridge that's not certified to carry heavy trucks anyway, so the traffic's only farmer traffic. But understand, when we originally did it to 70k there, the community were happy with 70k because it had placing to that. And the swimming pool, this Kids Cricket gets used a lot, so we've no problem in slowing there, but Hills Creek's no need. And if it does come 100 k's down to that, about that intersection, that's probably okay.
Still 50 before you have to turn into Hills Creek, isn't it? That's what you're saying.
That's it, yeah, but.
Yeah, you've got it,
but-
you can't go.
We've got existing signage there this year.
70.
The 70 signage is much closer to the intersection, so it would be about where the road sign is on Hills Creek Road that the change could actually be brought back to. I'm just looking at Street View now, and that could obviously be signed as 50 for.
Oh, if you come and have a look at this, it's great news, Stu. You can see it on street view. So here's the
So that's your entrance into
Yeah.
the 70.
Yeah.
You've got your sign there, which is about halfway
Yeah.
between the bridge.
Yeah.
Then coming into town, there's
We're right in the various home, right down there. The food past it even.
yeah, so you've got this stuff here, which is still in the 70,
That's a house now, there's more houses than it.
Yeah.
and then
Here's
that's,
your 50
and that's,
here.
and that's your 50 there.
So essentially we're extending back past the first house, likely.
We go right back up, the trees are way back up there.
What's the distance between the?
So that's an old photo, that's all filled with houses now, there's more houses there.
So street view.
That'd be a kilometre, that'd be a
That
kilometre
was
back
really
to
good,
there.
2012, but
So there's this on there, berries at the home there, and you're nearly a kilometre back to the top of it there.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, that's, in there you've gone from, there's 20 k's different, speed different. But I guess a lot of it will be relative because of the house in there.
It's about 600 metres currently. It was really pushing it because I know that it was the 70, the guidance was a 70 minimum length, should be 700 metres, and it only just met, but it is only guidance again. So
That's what I'm saying, there's not much between there and there anyway. You get 300 metres.
so from the last residential section to the Hills Creek intersection is about 350 metres.
Yeah.
Which is there. There's 350 metres.
Yeah.
Which is at 70
But
now.
that, where the pool's down there and the main's down there.
Yeah.
is it fair to say whether it's effectively that change represents travel time difference of 14 seconds to move it from 70 to 50?
So just that.
You know?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just, every time it's come up at last community board meetings for the last 15 years, and it has, and then town has crept too, it's got bigger, so it has kept creeping.
Yeah.
And I know there was a bit of opposition in the early days to transports and that, because all of a sudden, which because that's what they want to slow trucks down. And then there was a real talk, they want to come further south to Hayes Engineering, which I guess that could happen, then all of a sudden you're now looking at 6 or 7 Ks at 50 K.
So that's not our recommendation, Stu. The Hayes Engineering wasn't. It would be if development went on that end of town that would or may be considered. And as it was talked to, there are multiple rail trail crossing points throughout the district that are on a 100-kilometre-hour road, and the appropriate care needs to be taken with those crossing points. This section did garner 31 for and 19 against, so reasonably strong community support for it as it's shown, as well as obviously the community group coming in and speaking to that as well.
That's good.
But we can make that adjustment to Hills Creek Road and align the signage to the current signage location, which is about where the R is on Hills Creek Road. Piece there, just to keep that alignment there and not extend over the bridge.
And you are going to do that signage, you move the sign, not emergency.
Advanced.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty standard for us to do that anyway. That
That's
would be installation anyway.
Okay, yeah, all right. Everyone happy?
Yeah.
Leave it on.
Come on, yeah. Because where at? Where are you at?
Where are you?
We're from Mumbles.
So page 111 on the maps.
Yeah. We'll see.
Here's Hilda's Packer Park and now.
Was that 111 on the report, QB?
Page.
Yeah. So Cromwell North received 39 submissions for and 38 submissions against this change. Just trying to find the page number for you for the comments. So that is 19, page 19 for the comments, and there is also a submission on page 22 with regards to this from a party that's put together a very thorough submission on that.
Was that,
thorough, although I would highlight that that'll be why there was no police infringement issue, because I can't imagine anybody would have been capable of travelling at the posted speed limit. When we talk about this idea, because Wooing Tree is all 40, isn't it, within that?
Yes.
When we
Correct.
talk about this idea that potentially those kind of inclusive, not gated, but kind of one entry and exit point subdivisions might have 40 as an applicable speed limit, would it not then make sense to leave the rest as 50 in line with the other streets in all of our main centres?
So
I suppose,
this, oh, sorry.
no, carry on, QP. Carry on.
So this is a challenging piece. So largely this is around Shortcut Road as opposed to the other roads in question here, although they're sort of the effect of if you change one to align that area and changing that for consistency. Shortcut Road, we have challenges around speed and that it being used consistently as a shortcut when there is the highway there. We do have funding from Waka Kotahi to undertake some traffic calming on that road between now and the end of this financial year, and we're currently exploring and working with a contractor on what that may look like in terms of potentially speed tabling or some sort of priority curbing that you see in some other areas, just to try and slow people down and calm that area, to try and sort of remove it as a potential shortcut or to be used as prominently as a shortcut. The lowering to 40 is in line with the traffic calming measures that we are looking at. It is a solution as part of that puzzle, but not necessarily the whole solution.
So yes, so what we're looking at the moment is, two, three speed tables down here and you can't even too far apart, otherwise better to speed up and include them again.
Yeah, so speed tables being like speed
So
humps.
it's two in here, because, same thing to slow people down here, and also you've got, you know, you've got a lot of boat traffic and stuff going down through here as well too, so, and obviously now Wooing Tree coming out onto it as well, but it's just really basically.
But when we're talking about consistency across the district, towns are 50, our towns are 50. Are you then creating two different towns on either side of the highway, whereby one side you've got everybody travelling at 40 and one side you've got everybody travelling at 50, and the confusion that then creates? Whereas I would argue Wooing Tree can be separate because it's really obvious when you turn in there and there are one entry and exit points and the roads are really narrow. I think if you took all of those greys, not to 40 but to 50, you're aligning with what everything else in the district is. But also addressing those issues with Shortcut Road, recognising that it's not council's job to enforce the speed limit, it's a different agency, and whether those, you know, one or two speed tables or whatever it's going to be at the end would be sufficient. But does that then create traffic problems for people travelling with boats?
This is not,
Or is that?
no, they've been constructed in a way, we're quite wide one, so constructed in one way, because obviously that's a recognised and identified alternative route for the highway if there's an accident or anything like that as well too, so we have to make sure that.
Taking care of the
You can run whatever you
That's
know.
There is speed bumps on Partridge Road as you head into McNulty Inlet as well.
So
Yeah.
the, I quite like the idea of leaving it as it is, but having traffic calming. Is there any rules around having traffic calming
And a 50K.
in a 50K zone?
No, you just need to put additional signage up.
Just signage.
It's dropping it down to 15 or 25, whatever that is.
Because I think very clearly about the giant speed hump they've got up in Twizel. out in the, it's literally probably about that high. And I'm not suggesting we do that because kids love to play on it and we're trying to avoid kids getting run over here. But there is, there's some, I guess,
Talking about on 75 high, probably it's more than likely asphalt because we probably can't afford anything else.
yeah,
Got some
Because
sign.
I'm in Tamers Camp, but you're actually one side of the road, you can go 50 k and you're on the street. And you turn right on the state highway and you go 40.
So this has come about from significant community commentary to us from residents on that road. However, as we can see from the submissions, it's very, very close. So yeah, I guess this is for the panel decision.
I think there is a real community, I recognise the people who live on Shortcut Road and why they want it as slow as possible because they don't want that to be used as a shortcut road. But I think within the community, what I hear and see is a real pushback against this idea that people are going to be travelling 40 in town. And here we are saying consistency, and I don't think that 40 on one side of the highway and 50 on the other is consistent, but recognising that Partridge Road should definitely not be 100 k's or whatever it is at the moment. Could that be a compromise in the middle to take all those roads to 50 back 40? And then they're all the same because they're all quite different at the moment, aren't they? Some of them are.
So it's largely just that Partridge Road section. That's the rest of 50. It's largely just that Partridge Road anomaly where it goes to open road there, which we would obviously absolutely love to correct that piece. But I think what you're saying along the lines of having those roads remain at 50k local road speed, and then the importance of undertaking that traffic calming on Shortcut Road to try and alleviate some of those speed concerns and potentially make it a less desirable shortcut is the way to go. Is that what you're saying? Is that the preference of the panel?
Yeah, I think because you can't, I totally agree with Tammy, you can't have two subs one side of the road. Just confuses everyone. And if we can't let traffic through there, then that's probably the.
No, I
It's
appreciate
got to
that.
be the times you've got to swing trucks there or anything because they've got an emergency an intersection up the road. It's got to be and keep them able to move traffic through it.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
And that is the worry about all this is we actually have so many differences of speed variability.
Yeah.
Happy with that.
Cool. So Wayne, we will up.
No wonder why
We will
people maybe we have to ask for a road naming change.
I know, but do you know, it's funny, I was just thinking the same thing, what other name can we call it?
Long Route Road.
Long Take the high road. Yeah.
So we'll update that map for the council meeting, but Wayne, just note that the Partridge Road section that's currently 100 k's is recommended to lower in line with the rest of the network there.
Can I ask just so that when a lot of our public are reading these notes and what kind of time frame are we realistically looking at for traffic calming on Shortcut Road?
It'll be done before the end of the financial year, so they have to have it done by the end of the financial year.
So that's fantastic.
Like,
So
we're well through the prelim, like scoping designs with Fulton Hogan for pricing at the moment. I'll be chasing Carl out on that probably in the next day or so.
Yeah.
And then that'll inform what we can afford to do from a calming perspective.
but at least we are doing something.
Wheels in motion.
Wheels in motion. Perfect. Thank you.
Cool. From the south.
Yep. Sorry, just working my way through. So this had 45 for and 30 against. So originally, Pearson Road and Sandflat Road came to council for consideration, and there was a number of submitters also wishing for Bannockburn Road to lower its speed to 80 kilometres an hour. So therefore, those roads were held off this process and for us to come back with all three roads being considered. There are some other roads in this map. Sorry, Wayne, I'll get you to just scroll down to the next map.
Oh, yeah.
There is another few roads, one off Ripponvale Road at the top of the map there that is just to align with the rest of Ripponvale Road being 80. It's Ritchie Road there. That's just a correction essentially for Abbott. The other piece in here is Cemetery Road and some of the industrial development in there, also aligning to 50 k's with Highlands Entry, the Cemetery, future industrial development and current industrial development there. That road's currently 70, so it's just aligning that with obviously the growing town, and Stone Drive off Sandflat Road there, aligning to a 50km/h limit as well, in terms of just a tidy up. But the real Sandflat, Pearson and Bannockburn were coming back following consultation last time, and there is a number of submitters that have spoken in their submission around who live on that road, also around the desire to see that limit lowered. Whilst Pearson Road sort of is obviously quite close driveways to the road, Bannockburn does have that larger separation. However, it does have quite significant undulations in it where you can lose a vehicle in terms of your sight line and different things like that. And it also connects in with the 80 k's where you head across Bannockburn Bridge and some of those other changes through that area as well. So it's around aligning those limits.
And obviously there is the shared path that goes all the way down there, even though probably a lot of people, mainly people on bikes, will probably follow the rail trail route, but or Dunstan Trail route. And it runs all the way down, doesn't it, QP?
Yes, it does. And the comments are on page 29 as well. And there's some quite comments in there in support of that change as well.
Discussion. Commonwealth Kingdom, no.
Can you talk a little bit, QP or Paul, about, I understand why Ripponvale Road is 80, but the road surface and the width and the quality of the road on Pearson Road and Bannockburn Road is so much more superior than that. I just wonder, aside from this idea that there are cars pulling in and out, but not that many, the road reserves are quite substantial through there. Yeah, I'm with Stu. I just am not 100% sure that those roads are not capable of carrying traffic at 100 k's safely, and whether there is a case for.
Yeah, I guess, and Andy, this one, particularly Bannockburn's been around for a little while in terms of the proposed change for it. Do you want to talk a little bit about that road and the undulations and the safety risk there?
Yeah, I mean, Bannockburn Road has consistently, for when you're making those moves from the properties on, well, as we're looking at, let's say the properties on the right hand side, closer to the lake and the river on, they do not have compliant, not all of those have compliant visibility at 100 k's, and when the college extension was consented, this really got quite complicated because there was actually a requirement. There were effectively requirements or conditions that actually said there would be a speed reduction on Bannockburn Road to take that in, and
The Polytech brewery.
Yeah, which and I know the use along here has changed. There was a point where we were trying to respond to significant increased traffic and increased turning movements and increased use, and that possibly has not become as big an issue as we expected. These would be that they are looking for that ability to, whilst we're not trying to preempt, and we know we've got the Beetle Reserve in there that will never change, there's always been enough of a driver on Bannockburn roads to consider below 100 parts of Bannockburn Road in that section strictly speaking, it's not a 100k operating environment.
And Andy, just if I may, that northern end of Bannockburn Road, which is going to be the new industrial complex, it's going to be rezoned, it will have ingress and egress from Bannockburn Road into the industrial complex, so that 80k takes that into account, but they're turning.
It does. We are really careful. We're trying to, because we've come up, but we've talked about these as well, trying to have things that aren't preemptive, because the difficulty is you kind of set out your stall too early. People need to see things that create the need for the change. It is genuinely looking to align all of those environments into Bannockburn Road. We've always tried to consider this piece of road separately. There'd been a driver for extending more 80k on Bannockburn Road south, because there is one of our, even though we don't use crash data solely as the driver, that is overrepresented in serious crashes. Bannockburn Road south of Pearson Road is overrepresented, and the changes were made specifically to address that.
But that part of the
But
road
that's
is
totally different, that
significantly
road.
different
Yes.
type of road to what you're looking at here.
Yeah.
I mean, these are big, wide, completely straight roads.
And Pearson Road certainly is. Bannockburn Road, it's just these undulations are surprised that they catch people out. And there is one serious question there but that's not specific.
So when I read these submissions from people, it's not necessarily the road or the speed on the road, it's the people who are going faster than what they should be without getting caught and doing silly passing. They say, a lot of people talk about silly passing manoeuvres and driving in speeds of excess, I don't know how they know, but speeds in excess of 150 k's an hour. That's actually more
It's not us.
it's not our
not an issue.
responsibility to make sure that people are complying with speed limits.
Are there yellow lines on those undulations along there, you know?
Yellow lines on that.
Yellow notes and lines indicating that you can't see what the
No.
head's.
No, I drove it yesterday morning and I don't think so.
I don't think there are.
No, I think that
The issue with that had been that they're quite a strange thing to put in where people have got turnings where they turn left or right. I know it's only a piece of paint, but you've got access ways turning onto a road where they might turn in either direction.
But don't yellow lines mean no passing, not no turning?
yes,
No passing, yes.
no passing.
There are no passing.
Yeah, yeah.
So it shouldn't make any
No.
difference to people turning off left or right off their driveways.
There are some sections on 2019 Street View, I can't remember off the top of my head, but 2019 Street View, there are sections where there is the yellow and white dash lines through there.
Oh, we're not the same risky of preempting something. We haven't got the development industrial park. When that comes along, we'll have speed limit changes anyway. Potentially, and it can come back to us at any stage if there's going to be the development ahead. And that is the one that goes in past the Polytech. Is that in the right place? That would be the other argument. But there's a concern about which end it's at. The bottom end is definitely, the way I see it, is okay. It's the top end where it comes into the bottom of town.
It is,
There
yeah,
are many stations that have got no passing lines on the currently.
on one side.
Just one look.
Yeah,
Well, a little bit of a, you think, Tracy? Keep it same, or do we check that we are in the right place coming into the Polytech town? Could that be brought back?
I'm just trying to pull up what the consultation results were last time from the proposed Pearson Road, Sandflat Road changes, but it just might take me a minute to find that as well, just in terms of what the community
So I think
sentiment
there were
was.
some comments around that Pearson Road, Bannockburn Road intersection last time.
Correct, I believe so. I'm just trying to find the previous report.
Yeah.
I will note though that this did have 45 for and 30 against the proposed changes as well. Just noting that.
Which leads me to another, on a lot of these, the same people are opposing any speed or all speed changes from right across the region, and if they've sat there and everything has to be slower.
Yeah, one of those comments relates actually to the State Highway 8 entering Alexander from the south.
Yeah.
Which is not related to Cromwell South at all.
There is one letter that has written to us multiple times around the speed, and that is page 30, the row 15, Paul Bissett has written to us multiple times around the change along that section of road as well. Just to
And
note
he proposed, like, he would know a bit about roading, wouldn't he? One would hope. He submitted last time too, didn't he?
yes,
Did he come to us last time?
I believe so. I'm just trying to find that information.
I mean, I guess one of the things with the person who come and spoke today, is they've got a business there and find it totally acceptable to be running a business. And at what weight does that take as a part of a submission to someone who sits on an electronic device, who not necessarily lives there, and say that all speed limits should be lower?
That person is along that road as well, lives on that section of road. Just on that, and there is another person on that section of road that has an accommodating business on the corner of Pearson and Bannockburn as well. That is
Some of the campus laws, it's up by the Polytech there, we look and make sure where it enters that up in there, that it's maybe the right place, other than on the camp, everything stays the same, but I'm only one of three. And how, yeah. So when we, that intersection that they talk about goes across the river, then it goes to 80 there, doesn't it, into Bannockburn?
It
Yes,
does
goes-
just after that.
At the bridge just after Pearson, so it's 2.8 k's of Bannockburn Road at the moment is left at 100, waiting for the, effectively, it's sat in abeyance for this set of proposals.
Do you have any data, Andy, from those two roads around compliance with those?
I have to say that, you know, there's a lot of discussion about walkers and people taking pets and things. We do have to remember these roads, you know, they are for cars as well. And we do have an exceptionally good cycle trail and walking facilities through there. I'm not so much in favour. I just, if there was significant crash issues, then yes. And not that I want any crashes to be fair, but.
We have speed data from that section of Bannockburn Road from this November, December. And that shows about 11% of vehicles they're in 10 km/h brackets at or above 100 km an hour.
So arguably,
People are complying with.
Average.
Generally speaking, there's about 1% that exceed 100, that are in the 110 to 120 bracket or faster.
1%.
Yes.
And
Average
11% over 100, so 12%.
You've got 37% in the 90 to 100.
And
So lots of the traffic's going slow.
It's going slower.
average travel speed is 84 and 87, and it
Yeah,
actually speeds up. It actually speeds up. Unfortunately, at Pearson Lane, whether that starts to see some change, because that data is collected over a long period of time, so there'll be changes that are starting to see knock-on effects.
Ken Reverend, who probably can believe the same, but
Do we need to look at those other areas differently, the Stone Drive and then the Cemetery Road stuff that's going quickly? As part of it?
And Sandflat Road is
Okay, but
not all sealed.
there's probably a case for Sandford Road not being sealed and having that 50K, that's industrial area, isn't it?
Yes.
Stone Drive.
So that's industrial development.
So it is presently 100 too.
Stone Drive's a residential development, off Sandflat Road.
Oh, it's residential, right?
Yes.
So that's fine at 50, I would have thought.
Yeah, and then Sandflat being not sealed and certainly not to the same calibre as Pearson Road and Bannockburn Road probably should go to 50.
Any comments on that, guys?
Sorry, 80.
Got some speed out of Sandflat. 1780. So at the very southern end of Sandflat. You've got the vast majority. So you've got 12%, 30 to 40, 27%, 40 to 50, 32%, 50 to 60, sorry, 60 to 70 kilometres an hour, 19.2%, then it drops right off, 70 to 80 kilometres an hour, 4.5%, and virtually nothing faster than that, not a single.
The people are.
Would that not indicate then that 80 Ks is the appropriate
Yeah, I haven't got a problem.
for Sandflat Road, because that's the speed that people are travelling at or under anyway.
If it's getting too close to the intersection.
So basically people are compliant.
I think the speeds are being influenced by the approach to the intersection of Pearson Road.
You're on slide.
So we can look at that for volume.
Yeah.
But probably can't speed.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
River Road, 80 Ks, Sandflat Road, 80 Ks, Ritchie's Road, off Rivendale, which is also 80.
Yeah.
And then 50 for those light green ones, Stone Drive, Cemetery Road.
And across the way. I think that's what it says.
Yeah,
So in Rippenvale Road, the one, the road up in Rippenvale to 50 and not 80.
no, 80. That's
80.
the same as the
Same
map.
as the map.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is it easier? So you're agreeing with all of the proposed changes with the exception of Bannockburn and Pearson? Is that what,
That's what I've got.
happy with that? So Pearson Road and Bannockburn Road, say the same?
Yeah.
Yeah, good thought. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of any developments.
Oh, and obviously the Cemetery Road stuff is very close, right? Yeah. Boys more.
There's a lot of traffic on it, right?
Well, the morning, it's from-
In Hyde's Moorings.
No, on that flat road that goes up to the winery unit, the times that I've been up there have passed. Yeah.
there is also a cafe up there as well, operating in that area. But with that one, there was 44 submitters for the change and 26 against. But a few of the comments come through in that one with regards to the entirety of Paisamoreans Township itself, which is something we can discuss.
Okay. So is that, how far up Clark Road it goes? What's at the end there? Because the cafe is right at the start, isn't it? Or is it
Yes,
further up?
it is. It's quite near the start in the first.
And then the entrance to the winery is about halfway along.
Yep.
What's beyond that? For the second half?
Largely, I believe. So it's private farm.
But once again, it's a one-way destination, isn't it?
Once you've gone past that, does it
Yeah.
still need to be 60 or would it come back in?
Where is it?
I guess if there is a change in limit along that, that's additional signage we'd have to put in place and maintain, I guess, just from a maintenance point of view. Whereas if it was just that whole section, it would just be signposted when you come off the highway till the end.
Or does it stop? where it finishes, that is the actual end of the road.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there's legal road reserve beyond that, but it's not formal.
Yeah, it came, we did consult on it, so we couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So-
But there was not 80 then?
No, they came to us and said they'd like it, so that is what Bob Berry came about, that they'd like it to be lower, but because we hadn't consulted on it.
So pretty much 60 then.
Well, that first part, I think, probably it makes sense to be 60, and beyond that, as QP says, it's only a short bit, and then you'd have to have another additional signage for
Yeah.
the road.
Some of them, there are changes that we propose that sometimes you're doing a whole road for simplicity of signage. It does actually create an easier system and a lower cost to implement than that scenario to a certain extent applied at Shortcut, but there's other reasons for not doing Shortcut. This one effectively, you say that there is a good reason to have a 60. You don't really convert 60 for the first half. You're not really concerned as such with what happens to the end of the road. But one of the things now that changes, the way that they were written out, well, I suppose one thing that's important to kind of stress in what happened with speed limits was that originally, the only thing you referred to were the very bizarre, the very exact legal wordings of exact changes in distances where speed limits applied. What applies now, for better or worse, is a computer graphic.
Yeah.
And an area gets drawn around that space, and that's the enforceable speed limit.
I would have thought that, with Clark Road, if there's an increase in traffic, a reduction in the speed limit is actually going to preserve the surface of the road.
Yes.
And it is a destination piece to a vineyard, slash cafe.
Yeah.
So the people who are going up there are going there for a purpose. They're not going to be trying to break the speed limit to get there.
They'll be actually, if they're going, I think it's all been up there before, if you've gone up in there for your first time, you're actually going quite slow because you're trying to work out where your entrance was going up over the hill.
Yeah.
Once you
Think
pass,
that's right.
So
Yeah.
every 60.
Technically, it's like a club.
yeah. Yeah.
Every
Yeah,
60.
I'm happy with 60.
Cool. Very good. Well, absolutely. Dana,
You think?
QP,
Yep.
stats.
On to the next one, which is Bannockburn. So this is largely a tidy up from the back end of Bannockburn Road changing to 80 through the last changes, and as a result of that we had to implement signage on Schoolhouse Road and Gully Road, and essentially having open road signage. We have 50 people in support of this change and 21 against, so it's very strongly supported, this one. Essentially what this allows us to do is to pull down 100-kilometre-hour open road signage, and then have those as sort of self-navigating roads, because they're coming off a good quality sealed road at 80 kilometres an hour onto a gravelled metalled road, and it's sort of self-navigating, navigating speed limit there, because at the moment there was a few calls from the public on those roads when we made the changes, but obviously those roads not being incorporated then had to have open road speed limit signs placed on them. So this was just a tidy up from the last round of speed limit changes.
Cool. Questions?
I'm guessing traffic, having travelled on some of those roads, most of them you couldn't drive at 100 anyway.
No, you could not.
Some people could.
The average Claire, not in their white Prado with their.
Give them a tap on the front, see them, the camera, check the speeds.
Or a white G.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm with you before.
The only comment I will make is that, once again, this is a rural road network, and I would hate to think that there is a precedent being set that all rural roads will suddenly change.
I think you could justify this because it's like, it's rural residential, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
There's
so it's
a lot
not
of new houses
rural.
there. Yeah, it's not.
There's
rural,
not loads
yeah.
of people out moving their sheep.
There's not only that, there's a lot of people travel a long way on a lot of roads, and they're good roads. Anyway, no, I think agree with this one. Anyone
Yeah.
agree with it? So, very good. Now, moving over to Terrace, Marathon Road,
Yes.
80 or 100.
So this one was actually a decision or the other way with 39 for the change and 40 against. What I will note is through the commentary that a number of people voted no to the change, but requested a lower limit of 60 kilometres per hour, which has obviously skewed those results. And as we heard from one of the residents today, a lower limit is better than the 100 kilometre hour that's set. And noting we didn't consult on the 60 kilometre hour limit, it's not an option for obviously the panel to consider today without further consultation.
And can you just talk us through that, either QP or Paul, is around why it's 60 currently and why that's not being consulted on?
Okay.
It's 60.
Yeah,
It's-
okay,
yeah.
because basically that was a trial to see if we could, by reducing a considerable amount in conjunction with some no heavy through traffic signs as well too. Twofold, one through traffic count data, whether that made a significant difference to travel speed on that road. And secondly, whether or not that was going to show us a slowdown in rapid deterioration of that surface. Because we really struggle with our current grading cycles and wetland cycles to provide a level of service that would be expected on that type of road anywhere else in the network. Like, for instance, you can go across the highway and Bendigo Loop, which does get used, it's a big winery sub-region. A lot of people, people drive for wine tastings in Cloudy Bay and all that sort of stuff, but so it was a twofold thing, and it was in discussion with both Billy and other residents on that road as well too. I probably knew that we were potentially making maybe a little bit of a run for our back. But we had to try and do something there to see if we could actually fix some change, because obviously there had been a previous submission to council around actually wanting to seal that road as well too. So
So what, I guess, what the client, have you completed that trial as such? What is the finding likely to be?
I can comment on speed from May of last year, so 11 months ago. We had a traffic counter out at the south end, which shows a fraction over 2% over 100 kilometres an hour. 32 or 3% between 80 and 100. About 15 or between 15 and 20% at or below 60 kilometres an hour. At the opposite end, at or below 60, you've got less than 15%. So everybody is still speeding. Sorry,
can you just say that one again?
So
15%.
you've got about 15% that are definitely under the temporary speed limit.
Okay.
The majority of vehicles are sitting in the 60 to 90 kilometre range.
That's with temporary sign up or just the full.
That's, I believe the temporary was up by then. Yes.
yes, I think it was. Yeah.
Okay. But at the southern end, 75% travelling between 60 and 90.
Is that our latest data though? Because I thought we got a counter put out there
The
also.
latest I could find.
Okay.
And at the northern end, you've got about 60%, perhaps about 60%.
So everyone's
In
pretty,
that 60 to 90 range,
everyone's running in the average, so the average of 60 to 90 is about 80, isn't it?
roughly.
So, and just on that, there was more than just the speed control here from the residents' perspective why that temporary speed limit. We were trying to test what a lower speed limit did around the road degradation and the mettling frequency and the grading frequency required on that, as we look to build a case to Waka Kotahi for the sealing of that road and supporting sealing of that road. So it wasn't just around the speed and dust control in that piece. It had,
Correct.
yeah, there was other reasons for that that we were just trying to ascertain some data for, and we were getting quite accelerated degradation of that surface as well, and particularly with hot dry summer does make it a harder road to drive at speed.
So QB and there was obviously some comments in the submissions with regards to sealing.
Yep.
And from memory, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've got a figure of about $2 million to seal that road.
Yeah,
So which would be
correct.
You go.
Yeah, no, it's there's about it's just over the 2 million mark. It's probably about a $1.95 million actual seal job, plus the actual design of that. And in the 21 LTP, we applied to Waka Kotahi for the money to do the design, and were unsuccessful in getting local share. And getting the Waka Kotahi share to match our local share to do that. But it is a significant spend of in excess of $2 million.
So
Would that be just the sealing, or would that include intersection upgrades where it meets the highway at either end?
Sealing.
No,
So you're talking-
9.9 section improvements, just sealing.
So you'd be looking,
That's-
you're looking at at least a 4 or 5% increase in rates across the district for one road.
Assume what Kotahi would pay for half of it.
Yeah.
But half that increase.
Yeah.
by the street.
$1 million, you're looking
So
at
two-
2%.
2 to 3, well, plus the intersection.
Yeah, so
They'll
Ten
take
to 3%.
half a million to probably 750 to do 2 full intersection realignments. Because you potentially got land purchase and all sorts of things to negotiate through.
I guess
Top
the-
of the construction costs.
Today, we're having a discussion whether we have 80k or 100k. If we leave it at 100k, but I'll drop it to 80k, are we selling ourselves short when we go to Waka Kotahi? We've actually all of a sudden mitigated because we're never an issue. They go, we mitigate the problem, what should be involved? What are the numbers going, what I've been like, because GPS has made this our issue. Because the numbers are going through the roof. Now, even if it took 80k off it, with the people speed on, that's their own issue. But it's going to be used a lot, and it has come up in Tassie, and we're going to look at it one day. Maybe not in the environment room today. But do we, by dropping it to 80, jeopardise our ability to go to Waka Kotahi and funding, saying we better go problem? Or we keep it at 100, saying there is a problem, we need to fix it.
Well, I think when you're looking at the data, you can't probably just look at what the speed, what we've done with the speed limit. You've got to look at maintenance costs.
And by dropping it to 80, is that going
And
to
by-
improve the surface of the road, thereby save the ratepayers some money because it's not deteriorating as quickly?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion, there's some sort of restriction on it because of how it was getting used.
When it's good, it's great, and when it's rough, it's awful.
Yeah, correct.
It's already treated as a special case road. It's the one that we maintain.
Because it is the highest use
It's
gravel road in the
it's the
district.
highest used gravel road in the district, yes.
Yeah.
So I've also had initial conversations with Fulton Hogan and they haven't come back to me yet, but I wanted them to potentially have a look at over those, so that over that summer period, and that's when you're getting all the tourist traffic coming through. That's when you're getting Mary Point Winery is probably getting the highest number of tastings, clients coming in, is actually trying to slot another grading round in those in that high use period. Because and Billy did comment on as well too, during the winter when there's a bit of moisture in the material, it packs down and becomes a very good road. But to do that, they're going to have to probably source a local subby to slot it, otherwise it's going to stuff up that whole round for that grader in that
How
area.
close is it to roads that QLDC are grading in that area?
Oh,
Have they got a grader in the same area?
where would the nearest one be?
Church Lane, probably.
Yeah,
We do a number of roads in that area though.
Funny one, they come into Luggett, but they're on extremely low grading cycles.
Yeah, extremely low, like Stevenson's Road, and somebody else is there.
But if their cycle was
It's.
separate enough from ours to say, or once
Not
a
travelling-
year,
They're not travelling past either, do you know what I mean?
The one we did try once upon a time was, lining it up with Valentine Road, even though that feels like a long distance, because Valentine Road required so much
Good
grading.
now.
doesn't help anymore.
That doesn't help anymore.
And you only can go 60k down there, right?
Yeah,
That's the most frustrating. And
So let's get to the point of what, if we take it to 60, it'll never go back to 100 regardless if we put tar seal there.
well, we can't go to 60 now,
80,
that's not what we
80. What's every time we leave the site?
Oh, so yes, so, okay, is that, what is the story? If you reduce the speed limit to 80 and it does get tar sealed in the future, does it not then be it back up for debate whether it's 80?
Because you've changed the whole nature of the road.
Okay, so that's not the case then.
No, that's where, my concern is that it becomes status quo, even if we just
Yes,
tidy
I
up,
agree.
dust suppression and tidy up the road. I've got no issue with the road, it must try to maintain it to a better level, even dust suppressant or, but.
So, obviously, the big thing here will be that, the residents there, have seen it at 60, but I've been in very close communication with them around this. If I can, if I can still go back to them, we've got a trial section of some different material on that road. So out of Matilda Rise, it's a bit more clay bound from Mary Point back to 8A, which got put in maybe about 6 weeks ago. Is that if I can continue those conversations when Billy comes back to me, when Marilyn, John, Dustin come back from Mary Point saying, we've still got issues. I've already talked to them about the fact that I think our next couple of steps, I've told them that, that speed reduction is it's not the panacea. 100%, it will help a little bit, but we need to be looking at what are our maintenance interventions. Let's try something different on the section, see how it performs. And also let's have a look at potentially over that November to April period, where in the traffic count data will show that if we get counters in there at the right time, there is a spike in traffic volume, that we have a slight increase in maintenance investment with potentially another grading cycle in that period.
So dust suppression is not an issue, you can't use.
No, dust is an issue, but
Can we not mitigate that like we used to do it?
No, you can't use oil.
No.
Can I ask, you put a heavy traffic restriction on there,
yeah,
but there is still farming operations down there.
Yeah.
How have you?
no, it says no heavy through traffic.
Oh, through traffic,
Yeah.
and how is that monitored?
residents from the sounds of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, they've got their own.
I mean,
It's coming too quick, you hear that?
Yeah,
But
but
I think there's a difference. Like, I get your point around the rural drivers, rural roads, but the problem on here is not rural drivers on a rural road. It's
No, no.
people who've never driven on gravel before, and I think there is a case for.
so no heavy through traffic, is that something that we could look at?
Well, no, there's already no heavy through traffic signs up.
But is that part of the temporary measures, or is that, is that?
Oh, well, they can stay in because you don't, but they can stay up
Yeah, and
because they don't
but
have to.
does that allow the police to enforce
No,
that?
no.
No,
You'd have to put axle limits on it to do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Which is then difficult because you do get milk tankers and things going out, so.
yes, and I understand that, but that's a limited amount,
Yeah.
as opposed to, like you say, through traffic going through with heavy.
So anecdotally from the residents, they have seen an appreciable drop on other heavy traffic, stock trucks, using it as a shortcut, winery trucks, all that sort of stuff since those signs have gone up.
Okay.
So
Well, that's a start.
wasn't my intention to take those signs down, no matter what happened with the speed consultation, they will stay up.
Okay.
So going back to speed, who's got the appetite to change it? I guess we're making a recommendation to come back to council.
So
And it's not going to have an impact on the Waka Kotahi I don't believe it would have an impact on the Waka Kotahi piece for funding for future sealing. And as we sort of stated, if the speed was dropped, we can reassess this through this process at a future date if it was sealed.
Would it potentially help our application to Waka Kotahi in the future if we had shown that we had done everything we could to mitigate the issues ourselves?
Yes.
That would be,
I.e. we've lowered the speed limit already, we've put signs in place, we've tried different materials, we've done everything we can, now we need help to seal it.
Correct. It's probably more of a beneficial thing that we try and do everything we can do, than not, to support a case for investment. So again, it's a combo of some reasonably annoyed residents and also our ability to be able to maintain that road to a suitable level.
Yeah, half of me is telling me that even if you took the restricted, you put your traffic management, most people are doing 80 k's on that road on an average speed. People's got 100 on. So we haven't got a speed issue. If you take your figures, 36 became going between 80 and 100, under 18% are going under 60, and 60% are doing between 60 and 90. So they're actually going at that limit. So what does need to change? The issue may be that at our surface end and we have a high impact road that we might have to look at in our road and maintenance contracts differently than what we are at the moment. If it's again, that evidence tells me that 60% of the people go, that south end come out the top end are going between 60 and 90 k. So they're not, it's not, well, it is.
Under a current temporary 60 kilometres an hour, not.
But if we've got a bit of evidence before that, it's telling me it won't have changed much. Well, they wouldn't be going 100, it wouldn't be 40% going between 70 and 90. I mean, all I'm saying is just, if the evidence we've got, admittedly, the no trucks is probably a bigger issue, go through for heavy traffic. My reluctancy would even take the government policy is we're not going to start cutting the state highways. Is to take it down, but actually everyone is doing 80 k, so it wouldn't really make a difference if it was 80 or 100 sometimes as well.
If the, you know how the GPS stuff is influenced a lot, if that became 80 k's or 60 k's, would the difference in time increase enough to show the fastest route is via the highway and not via that?
No,
Like people,
unfortunately not. So
or it's still going to be there.
It's actually one of those ones. Yeah, it's the cutting off the 3Ks. The drop to 60 is more 60. It's marginal, but I think the feeling was that actually dropping to a permanent 60 was moving into an area of precedence for the district, even if there's road a special case that we probably we didn't want to put that up as a recommendation. I think it's
no, just not necessarily in terms of
No,
the road, just in terms of the algorithms that run in Google
Yeah.
Maps that show you which is the fastest route, because it's very difficult to get them to
Yeah.
move that.
Do you know
It's a
if
change
they
of-
look at the average time speed travelled, or do they look at the posted limit?
they put in. They use a combination of both, and the problem is we certainly tried between 2017 and 2020 to get a major handle on the algorithm and what they were doing, and it was very hard to. Well, you couldn't really get any information.
I mean, if we leave it at 100, nothing's going to change until we come up with a plan to fix the road or look for subsidy from Waka Kotahi or Council New Zealand, and or have our own subsidy road and look at it. Somewhere along the line in our long-term plan, we've got to look at this road as a TARCL issue.
I'm just Stu, I can answer that. I think I'm with other priorities in terms of on our roading network, and the challenge around bridges and funding, and different things like that. Undertaking a seal extension or a sealing of this road may not be deemed of the highest priority and that's something for us to consider as we develop the long-term plan about where that priority does sit for this road. And as you sort of talk to, most people are between 60 and 90. In terms of formalising that 80, that does ensure that there is that enforceable limit in place for that road that will support it not being degraded and cut up as much as it necessarily would if there was a higher limit on that. And it would go some way to working with that community that lives along that road and trying to reduce the people using that road as well as that heavy truck thing. From an officer recommendation, it would be our recommendation to lower it, and hence why it's been put forward at the 80 mark. But obviously can go through to the council and the panel can make their decision, but it's our officer recommendation.
Can I say one final thing about just reducing it QP so that it is enforceable? There is a sealed section on Marrow Point past the Aurora substation, the substation, and we do have a pretty good relationship with the police here. And if we're getting reports or our track account data showing that there's still an excessive speed issue above 80 kilometres an hour, I'm sure if we bring them, they won't sit on the gravel road and get covered in dust all day. However, they could sit, and it would be a good spot to pop a patrol car there. It's another measure if we needed to as well. But at the moment, we can't enforce the current one. And I think it would be hard. It would be harder to have that conversation with the police if they're still sitting at 100.
Can you tell me if it was a reduction to 80, would the improved road condition mean that you would be able to stay within the same grading cycle?
I think it's a combination of both, Tracy. So as I said, I don't think.
No, but I mean, like, so you think that at 80 would allow us to continue with the same grading that we are currently doing? Or are you saying that irrespective of whether it stays at 80 or 100, we have to make another grading round to go in it?
Yeah, and I think so. I think, but it's a combination, like just doing one of those things I don't think is actually going to generate the improvement we need, but we don't know until we try it.
And I accept that you've said that you're using some different sources and things.
So therefore, what's wrong with having a temporary 80 kilometre an hour for a year to do that road and start to find it? I'm my reluctance to take it off, but I think we've got to get all the road up. But that doesn't mean to say that we neglect the level of service we're doing now and try to enhance it.
What are the benefits of leaving it at 100?
Possibly no benefits to other than the precedent they set.
We recognise that this is the highest use gravel road in the district.
Yeah.
And it's not the same as a
And
river
it's
road.
the same level of service as every other gravel road in Bacchus and Bathurst. And I guess that's what the interface is. If it got a level of service that we may have to fund out of something else to make it level to the number of, it's a bit like the mini totem when they want the milk tankers to go down. We maintain the road to the level of the milk tankers. I guess that's my biggest fear, is that then if we did make that road, admittedly it's not a very big road, to the level which requires the service it's getting, admittedly it should be a state highway issue as well. I guess that's my concern.
I suppose the other thing with gazetting at an 80 as well, too, when you're talking about tourist traffic going through, yeah, and anecdotally from the residents, and I mean, not every accident gets reported. There have been a number of cars go upside down on that road because they're going too fast. If it gets gazetted at some point reasonably quickly, that will show up on Google Maps and navigation systems, and it will notify the driver that they're in an 80k zone. At the moment, it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
It'll say it's 100.
Which has created the problem because they're coming off a state highway. Every shortcut road, the shortest thing, expecting to have a cut.
Yeah, and what they probably driving to a target, and you know, tourist drivers will do that.
Oh, yes, definitely.
You know,
Unenforceable 80k in the end
What do you
will be a visible limit.
Yeah.
As a concern to 10 minutes.
I think it's,
Okay,
yeah, I think we've got enough.
and we've got to make sure that we don't drop the level of service because we've got speed. I guess that's my biggest fear.
That's not the intention.
Yeah. Long doesn't become an unintended consequence. No, we can just. What is happening in the flash? Keep going, really going. So it's a big chunk, it's right. Right.
Those are
Schools.
the places for
Right,
six.
six. In the race.
Can I ask a question about school before we have to cover into each individual?
Yeah. This is all, to be fair, I'm probably pretty not sure about all the schooling stuff.
I just had a question about the schools. Why Clyde and Poolburn School are not variable like that? When we talk about consistency again,
Poolburn is variable.
they were all the same, and I've written down, so Clyde is different, and then Poolburn is different, or is that just different because it's 80-60 variable?
Yeah, it's 80-60 variable. So the change, I think this is a good point to do schools as it was perceived in the original rules, which these responded to. We were adapting and changing our proposals and tailoring our proposals to what we believe will come in Setting a Speed 2024. When Setting a Speed 2022 came in, we effectively two categories of school were created. There was category 1 and category 2, and part of this acknowledged the challenges of schools in open speed environments, even 80 to a certain extent, that are dropped to 80, from 80 to 30 or 100 to 100 to 30. This wasn't achievable, but it is really difficult because immediately then there's the strange conversation around, so kids that get out of the car next to an open road speed limit, well, it gets a motive, doesn't it? There are phrases used like those kids don't matter as much because you're still holding the speeds too high. The speeds around schools have fundamentally been tried to be set at 30 because the international evidence that goes with this, and we've backed it up in New Zealand, is that a horrible term, that 30k is a survivable speed. The difference is that what it becomes is less than 10%. If people are involved in a crash where it's pedestrian and vehicle, at 30 k's an hour, the serious injury, like major serious injury fatality rate is well below 10%. At 40, it's around 60% fatality rate, and at 50, it's above 90. So the designs have come around those, and they were looking, there was a system looking for a much, they kind of wanted to go through a stage where they did variables and then pushed even harder for permanent speed zones, because there are concerns around sometimes the effectiveness of variables, but where everyone's arrived at is the variables. If you can really control the extent of the road you put under the variable, it feels like you're in that school precinct, for want of a better word, that you can actually get some effective compliance and people thinking about what they're doing. But it's Clyde is a special case because Clyde is seen as the extension of the 30 that's already established. We have one school that's already established under a permanent 30 at Goldfields. And that was just addressing the road environment and continual feedback. The road environment wasn't suitable for anything else. It's just there's been this chat about 30 k's around schools. So Clyde, what we're trying to do is avoid setting a variable speed limit that sits on the outskirts of a permanent speed limit. And again, you're sending people through multiple changes. Poolburn, I live rural and have school age children. I'd like to see the opportunity for Poolburn to possibly have a lower speed than 60, but realistic, and probably amongst all the things that we face at the moment, it's very hard to do less than 60. Poolburn Pulburn has those advisory speed signs on the site, which was the only option that we had around 2018, 2019 that was done. It's still, Fred, what it effectively gave us was the data from memory was it got speeds down during school operating times. The average speed came down to about 70 k's an hour, and it knocked about 10 k's an hour off the 85th percentile speed. Because along that bit of Ivor Valley Overcloud Road, the 85th percentile at that time was actually above 100. Travelling above
I guess,
national speed limit.
so are we gonna deal with Pulburn straight off, or are we gonna go through
Well, I
the?
think we can kind of. Okay.
Because I guess with Pulburn, the variable speed limit is a permanent 80 and a variable 60.
It's a permanent 80.
And I don't know how that is going to work, to be honest. I think you'd be much better having a longer variable 60. A 60 that is for the specific time of during school, in the egress and ingress. So where school starts and finishes, because you're talking about quite a different road to the rest of, and the schooling environment there. All the rest of the schools are in town.
And would potentially have children outside of school hours, whereas.
And, you know, there's only 50% of the year that kids are actually in school anyway. And you're talking about a permanent speed reduction for a lot of time when the school's not even in session. I'm not saying, and also with Pulburn, specifically, there's they do self-manage very, very well. They have got the big dip coming in and it's gated. All the parents they do not have to park on the side of the road to collect their children. The buses do not have to park on the side of the road. But I do believe that traffic should slow down during those peak times when kids are, there is a possibility of kids being out and about. So I don't know whether that's a possibility that we can essentially, I guess, whether that pushing out of the 60 with the flashing lights gives the enforcement agencies the ability to ping people, because I'm conscious when I read the principal's submission that they clocked someone at 140 going past the school at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, that's just ridiculous on any stretch, but that would give how do they do that? How did they do that? How, well, they just put their foot on the accelerator, I guess.
No, how did they collect?
The police did.
That's what's happening.
Yeah, no, it wasn't the school stand.
I'm a bit of the Pulburn one, is that actually the people, the staff, the children are off the road.
Yeah, and that's the difference between a category 1 and category 2. It's not urban and rural.
Yeah.
It's anything that is rural where people are children are picked up or dropped off inside a fenced area. You don't have people walking to school or biking to school. If there was a population of students who were biking to school in that rural environment, it'd be 30.
Can variable speed limits only be set 20 kilometres apart? Can you not have 100 down to 60?
You can have 100. You can have 100 down to 60.
But your compliance is probably going to be lower, so you'd perhaps want to
Extend out to
make it
60, but
wider, and then it might get to the point though where you need repeater signage that's also electronic. So there's a cost element, unfortunately, involved with it as well.
And a compliance element. The difficulty is, again, we're moving into a territory where there aren't hundreds and hundreds of examples in New Zealand. We're going to see this develop as it goes, but there have been. It surprises me, it saddens me, but there are issues with compliance with longer variable speed limits. If people feel they're coming into the area, it's not for people who don't know the road environments will often comply with speed limit directions. So the issue starts becoming when people think, it's, for example, coming through there, it's January the 10th. I don't have to do anything because the school's not there.
So in relation to Fulburn School, if we said that, well, yes, you want traffic to be going past at 60 if it's complying with during the school day, but not necessarily be hindering traffic at 2 o'clock in the morning, what's the best way to do that?
I mean, coming back to Melissa Gare's comment, it's a belt and braces option, because it does mean that there is an option to take the variable lower than 60 with the solution proposed.
John, I'll just kind of provide some context around that, Andy. So when Andy and I were originally discussing this being a Category 2 school, but and talking about the fact of lowering the limit to 60 for that, having a step change is an advantage in terms of going to 80 for that wider section and then down to 60. That is advantageous in this instance. It is not required. However, if there was to be a lower limit than 60 for that school, or if the panel wanted to consider a lower limit than 60, that 80k section would have to be there. Hence the consultation for that extent of the 80 section to allow some flexibility in the variable speed limit that's put in place. That it does not have to be there if there is going to be a variable 60 in that space, and we could look at what extent that is, if that's extending that out a little in each direction, just to get that signage lined up safely.
Yeah, so when I'm looking at the discussions here from in relation to Fulburn School, there is people say they want to know what hours. So the flashing lights, and I guess that tells you that there's kids, but that would only happen during set present. You know, that is in conjunction with the school as to what time that would be.
Yeah.
It's usually at that. Because
I don't want to quote me on this, but it's like 20 minutes before to 10 minutes after, or 25 minutes before to 10 minutes after kids come and go from school, so the start of school, and then at the end of the day, the same thing, sort of 5-10 minutes before through to 15-20 minutes after. There is specific timing that we are required to keep to for that signage. But
so the only is it, and I'm just looking at those signs, but is it specific? Are those the only signs you can get, recognising that Alex Primary School finishes at 2:50?
Oh, so we have a device.
We'll have control of all of them, and we will be able to change the times if there was reason to, and not activate the signs during school holidays and other weekends. Yeah.
So, okay, we'll have this. And then the board now, we come back to later.
Let's go on order.
Let's go on.
So we're coming back forward.
We've done it already, discussion. Done some volunteer skills. And you said that, all right.
Is there any feedback? Sarah has for a long time been asking for a pedestrian crossing there. Is that still on the cards, or will this eliminate the possibility?
Whereabouts are you talking to that pedestrian?
So they want a pedestrian, so there's a school crossing that used to have school patrol, but now they can't get kids to do school patrol, which is kind of just along the edge, just past where the driveway comes out for the gym. There's a bit where they've done it in the past.
On Enterprise Street?
Yeah, on Enterprise Street, yeah. Kind of halfway between Black Street and Marsland.
Yeah.
What's involved in putting a pedestrian crossing in?
The biggest challenge is, so at the moment, the design goes through a warranting process, a number of vehicles. The really significant challenge at sites at schools is you create this effect where kids feel that they have a safe crossing point, and people watch a crossing point only in school hours. And
Okay.
what I see happens then out of hours is that kids just go onto the crossing because they think the crossing is safe, and drivers are looking.
But isn't that the same in the middle?
Well, it is, and it's not just in kid, yes, so it is, so there's a very small percentage, all of the statistical stuff is that it was ever so slightly more risky to have a full pedestrian crossing in that kind of site than it is to, it's a slightly elevated risk to put a pedestrian crossing in, and that's why the Kia crossing was.
It's a challenge that I see on there is Enterprise Street. So once you get onto Marsden Street and closer to the primary, it's not such a big deal, but there's a huge amount of kids trying to cross Enterprise Street.
Yeah.
With a huge volume of traffic pulling in and out, dropping off high school students.
Yeah.
And the challenge being, if you are 5 or 6 years old, you can't see over the cars. So they're then having to come out into the roadway anyway,
Yeah.
to look beyond the parked cars, and then you've got cars moving in and out. So if you have kids coming out into the carriageway anyway to be able to see if it's clear, at least if you had a pedestrian crossing with, obviously you can't park that close to a pedestrian crossing, you're then creating a space where kids can look easily to see if there's cars coming. It's been on the radar from the terrace for so long, wanting a pedestrian crossing there. I know the school patrol officer from the police station cannot get kids to do the road crossing. They're just not reliable enough to get there all the time, or to staff it. I just think that there is a case to be made for a pedestrian crossing alongside the signs there, but I'm not sure what the roading.
I don't disagree with that desire at all. The shorter term solution may be to look at parking restrictions to prevent, to prohibit parking in areas where it impacts visibility. That's much easier, simpler and cheaper for us to implement. It's not necessarily the perfect solution, but it could be deemed a short-term improvement.
Because there are access points where they used to have the road patrol.
Yeah.
Could we look at an interim as a service request, having some yellow lines either side of those just to create a safe funnel space?
So where's that?
So the road patrol thing is
Which one's it?
just about, yep, so it's not there, it's just the side of that runs out there. Yeah.
And that's something that can be looked at through our long-term plan process and safety improvements.
Thank you, Pete.
Other than that, are we happy with the speed?
Happy with the speed and the signs that'll be going in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just speaking to this one, we had deliberately pulled it away from Russell Street on the basis of understanding some of the information, some of the direction that has come through from central government saying that it's not changed the speed limit rules yet. Trying to include the intersection of Russell and Enterprise and going up Russell was starting to get into the territory of quite, maybe not overreach, but certainly it was going to be a very extended variable speed limit section.
Should lots of them cross on the Russell Street side of that intersection anyway, where the pathway comes out beside the cafe?
Yeah,
So they're not trying to cross Russell Street in the main industrial area. Most of the traffic there that's coming off Enterprise Street is turning right, and it's
Yeah.
actually pretty quiet if you go down that left
yeah.
end. I think that's probably about right.
Yeah, and I suppose actually just covering the comments, because the schools ones are important to all of us. It was Royal Terrace intersection is not included because that's actually an extremely difficult intersection to create any kind of enforceable lower speed environment. I remember looking as roading engineer, we looked twice at some kind of like upgraded crossing, and the problem was you probably created more problems than you fixed, because you ended up with that level change on Royal Terrace is really difficult to do. You suddenly ended up with steps. Then we were talking about kids doing jumps off steps and landing in open roadway that looks like it's quiet, but then it's not quiet. So that's really, that would be very much that extent covers the area where, you would be maximising the benefit to children at risk whilst they cross the road.
I think it's important to note that kids will be kids, but when they're walking from home or biking or whatever, scootering, it's not usually until they meet their mates that they stop.
Yeah.
Their brains are, so when you're talking with that zoning that you're talking about where the 30 Ks are, they're usually more likely to be in a group there as opposed to further afield. So it is important, you know, as a parent, I know it's my responsibility to make sure that my child gets to school safely and they are taught as much as possible to make sure that there is road safety. And if they're not road safe, you have to make sure that they are.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with that, but I'm really happy with the flashing signs. I think that's really exciting. Bring on the flashing signs.
Okay, was that one?
Yeah.
Johnson High School?
I can get that action pretty quickly under this, but it's not a huge cost to do that.
Cool.
We'll just identify how far back we need to come from that.
Yeah.
That third crossing, and we can get that identified.
And then maybe if we could just feed that back to the parents to say that we've tried to create a more safer area.
And-
You encourage your parents and children to cross at this point because they're great visibility.
Yeah, now that we've got this following, it's there, safety, it's things like this. Let's get one around,
Yeah.
share the road and once it's ready, so I can just pass it on.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Right, get that one done, we'll have a little breather. Just a quick 3 seconds.
Toilet break.
Toilet break, coffee. Then we're into the
Working on
So
yeah,
that was,
okay.
that was done.
That was in the primary,
Alexander Primary, we're up.
look at that. Seems logical, doesn't it?
Wanted to know the process around signage on the state highway, or just not have any, or will they do it?
It's likely that, so our requirement to implement these around schools is 100% compliant by the end of this year, or by the end of this financial year, 100% by the end of 24-27. This one, it's likely we won't implement the changes until such time as Waka Kotahi consult and make the changes on the state highway. So the idea there is they will likely have electronic signage, and then we can have static signage that supports it. If we wanted to do it now, if we wanted to implement it now, we'd have to put electronic signage in, and it would have an awkward change at the intersection from Denalling Street to the state highway, which would only address part of the issue for children.
So does, Alexander Primary understand that? Are they fully aware of?
They are currently in the process of building a big fence around their school, so that's the subway towards.
Yeah, they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's just so that, you know, the school doesn't feel left out and they get taken on the journey with us. When they see the other schools all getting
Sounds like
flagged
a
signs
job.
and they're like, how come we
Yeah.
didn't get any?
If the fence around the school influences where children enter and exit and how they're dropped off, we may be able to implement these changes earlier if we're not concerned by the risk on the state highway. There's nothing that prevents us from doing that earlier.
And has that been consulted, have you been speaking to the school?
And we directly told them that this may not happen until such time as.
Rebecca had the conversations with the school. I wasn't party to them, so I can't say.
We can check on
I think you should check on that, just so that they,
If they see other schools getting it and think it's out.
I think that's really important, just check that communication.
can do without me for 2 minutes. I can do it.
And the same applies to
Jared.
St. Jarlath's.
So we have it.
So I'd just like to note with that, I would encourage the panel as part of the recommendation today to encourage the Transport Agency to accelerate their school timeline, because we are hopefully going to be ready with ours quite soon to go ahead with the ones that border the state highway, because Roxburgh School also forms part of that. And we should be encouraging them to get them underway so we can make these changes together.
You have a Clyde School.
I think St. Jared's next, sorry.
Yeah, St. Jared's.
And where it's from.
So again, in context and conversation with the school, Tarbert Street's their biggest concern, and the pedestrian crossing on Tarbert Street in particular, and kids coming in and going there. So again, it's another encouragement for the Transport Agency to undertake their change necessary for that school, and our streets become supporting elements to that change as well.
And that crossing is actually really well used, not just by schools either.
Yeah. So is that where we've got the variable speeds, those will be those white ones? They're not flashing ones, is that right?
Correct.
Or
They
does
will be
it-
static. They'll be static variable. So there'll be a sign that has the time difference times on it that those speeds are in place.
Yeah.
That's all we have to do. There could be a decision to put electronic signage to do a better job if funding was plentiful
Yeah. If there was a particular
issue
street
or
that had a
compliance.
lot, okay.
And with St. Jared's. Right? Clyde. The issue with Clyde, I guess some of that, some of the discussion this morning would be with the road routes around town, wouldn't it, or not? That their issue that isn't much have it being diverted with.
There is a bit going that way, and there definitely is heavy traffic that's no longer using the main street of Clyde. I wondered, going forward, is there any, that was the other thing, around pedestrian crossings, recognising that lots of old people will be coming in as well, and whether we need to look to get people from one side of Sunderland to the other, just because it's so wide down through here. Is there a better way, especially that 5 point crossing, which is where the teacher takes them to in the afternoon to help them cross, but it's quite a wide road to get across for little legs.
Yeah.
On which side of that tideway crossing would you put it on?
I would think it would probably be the town end of Sutherland Street, wouldn't it?
I guess one of the challenges we have around the extent of school speed changes, and I know we're talking about a crossing point in this, is we can only go so far in protecting or having a lower speed environment for the journey to school, and it's really around trying to circle that on those sort of direct impact pieces by the school itself. We probably can't talk without actually having a decent look at that around what opportunities there are for crossing points, and there are different styles of crossing points. It doesn't necessarily have to be a white painted pedestrian crossing. Maybe it's some curb build outs that allow for a safer crossing point with some good visibility in that respect. So, but that's not something that we can necessarily just address by looking at this map on the bit of paper in front of us, unfortunately, as part of this recommended change.
Talking about that continuity and consistency across the district again, should we be looking at variable speeds of 30 and 50 as opposed to exceeding the 30 speed limit?
Yes and no. It's a challenging one in this space because obviously there could be confusion created from a VSL coming out of a 30 into another suddenly flashing 30. It could create some confusion in that respect. But yes, it is something. Doing this under variable speed limit signage is something that we could look at. One thing we haven't considered, and I'm not sure if Andy, you can talk to this, is potentially having variable speed limit signage and then static variable for the other streets, but incorporating that 5-piece intersection of Sunderland Street with variable signage. Or are we potentially getting too far from the school, as I guess would be
It was a big area, isn't it?
I think there's kind of the challenges. There's 2 pinch points. There's that kind of corner of Whitby and Blythe where the kids are all coming in and out of the school, and then that 5-point intersection is its own kind of thing, but a problem for what we're looking at discussing. But maybe a curb build out or some other safer way to get across there.
Some what district?
Yeah, I know we've had a conversation about signs too, but can that be complemented with some additional, children walking?
I think it has to be. And actually, what about giving times? Can you put times in there too? Or you're talking about the flashing signs?
No, I'm talking about static ones.
Static signs.
Yeah.
What does it help?
There'd be no reason why you couldn't actually have a time on there as well.
Yes, that's what I'm just saying. So, during the hours, look out for kids type thing, between 2:45 and 3:30.
Because if you went from Clyde, you would have no idea how close you were to the primary school.
No, you wouldn't. So I think like even a cheap and cheerful would be some of those school type signs, advisory signs in and around that intersection.
Say school as well.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
The children's sign could say school.
Cool.
I mean, you can set up
Yeah.
school period signage and not
Yeah.
have any speed change.
Yeah.
associated.
But just make people aware that there is
Simple
one in the
coming
area.
Coming into a school zone.
Yeah.
And that could actually be a very good solution for Sunderland Street. I think, I'm gonna come back to on this one, that the concern is that with the historic precinct 30 and where we set the limits of that, Clyde School does become a special case in this one, and I can't think of another example where a 30 moves into a variable 30. And just from a road and traffic engineering design point of view, just worried about creating a confusion where people.
You get a lot of food
So
in Clyde, don't you?
So you're just saying doing a straight blanket 30 as opposed to a variable?
This is the difference on this one
Yeah.
site, just because it's not separate from the
Yeah.
historic precinct anymore. It doesn't have to come quite so far up Whitby Street, but again, then there was almost starting to become. We're not trying to cover all bases, but suddenly what you've got is you've got angle parking from parking from Bowles, you've got the campground, which is effectively used at the one, will create maximum foot traffic at the one point where then the signs would never be being turned on.
True,
Um,
and it'd be beneficial to have.
And I do know from going to Clyde, and it's an awful lot of people don't drive out to the campgrounds and go to Clyde, they walk along that bit, so it does feel like the appropriate solution for Clyde.
Yeah.
But
Maybe with that, but maybe to the signs.
So if we put double gated school zone signs this side of the southern section, that side and that side, because obviously you've already got,
Yeah,
people if they're coming out of here already know they're in school.
Yeah.
zone already. Is that acceptable in
I
here?
think so. Yeah,
You know, signs are cheap,
yeah,
level of compliance debatable, but definitely if people, you did right, and I hadn't thought about that full time, like, who, if you're not local, you're from out of town, you wouldn't even know this.
no.
You would not even.
I think a lot of locals wouldn't know that there's a school, where the school in Clyde is.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Let's
that'd be a
take-
good interim step,
Yeah,
especially since the kids have come in and spoken to us specifically about that intersection
yep,
and the challenges. It's not so bad in the afternoon because the teacher goes,
yeah,
but in the morning, just to make traffic coming in and out of town aware, especially looks at that traffic that's come in overnight for the,
Other things.
different cycle stuff and then is heading out again in the morning to just, oh, yep, I am watching out for school.
yeah.
Paul, just given that the kids made quite a bit of effort to come and present to us,
Yeah,
is it possible that we can follow up with them relatively promptly?
I'm quite happy to,
Could you go out?
well, if we go and see them, we'll send them a letter from the roading manager. And
Yeah, and just tell them what,
Because
legally we can and can't do, and,
Yeah.
and this is what we're gonna do. And maybe it might be, dare I say it, media sitting out the back there, an ideal opportunity to get some gorgeous little kids' faces with some new signage, so that the rest of the district actually, through whatever means. they can-
You'll pass them on the sign on.
And I don't, no, I'm busy. Oh, look a lot better on the picture than me.
Oh, I don't know about that, you're right there. Just saying.
It might be quite nice to, yeah.
All right, have a try to those with, that's
Yep.
something.
Yeah.
I'm now done some June, we're gonna pull you, discuss about full, we're moving ahead. That's our solution.
Paul, I'm in favour of the flashing 60, not the blanket speed. Down from 8, not the permanent 80 and variable 60.
If
Do you
that's the,
perceive,
oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, do you perceive any risk around the McCady Road intersection corner that could be mitigated by,
That's a
And
long way from the school.
Long way.
That's a hugely long way from the school.
it has been flagged by Waka Kotahi, so there are also deceleration minimum distances to go from.
It's a long way away,
Um,
and in fact, the distance of that being so far away, I did look at it carefully today as I was coming up, is actually people will not abide by the signs.
No, it's
Full stop.
full stop. And it'll actually have it'll be an unintended consequence if it's not realistic. I know it sounds the wrong thing to say around the school, but people, you know, it's just too far out and even,
They don't currently abide by the signs, because going past the school, in the vicinity of the school, you've got about 25% of people travelling at speeds between 100 and 140 kilometres an hour in August of last year.
That's a police issue.
yeah, that's a police
Yeah.
issue.
It demonstrates that signage alone is.
And I think flashing signs are beneficial,
Mm.
especially those black ones. They are very
Yeah.
catchy.
So
And
just,
we're-
oh, sorry.
Yeah. I was just thinking in my opinion, that is way too long, because if you were new to the area and you were coming up through the Old Valley Omakau Road all the way around before you get to the corner, you'd be wondering,
Where's the school?
where's the school? You know, it's too far. That's a
Where
significant.
that circle goes around the whole diagram is about the right place with all the speed restrictions.
So what we can do from here, if the recommendation is to basically do away with the permanent 80 section, we can between now and the council meeting look at whether a slight extension to that 160 variable speed sign goes in relation to that, if there is advantage in a slight extension to that for the school in that piece, and then bring that to council as part of the panel's recommendation.
Yeah, so in addition to that, and this is going back to Clyde again as well too, could we, to supplement that variable messaging when you come around, and both from the Omakau end, but also coming around the Macadie corner intersection, that we actually put some double gated school zone signs up here as well too.
Yeah.
That just say school zone, so it makes people aware they're coming up onto the school.
Yes.
Then if the variable's going, the variable's going.
That's all.
And if it's not, they're still a bit more aware, but probably not aware at 2 in the morning.
There is an argument that if you approach a reduced speed limit, but you can see the increased speed limit on the other side, people won't slow down at all, or they won't slow down. So you roll into a 60, and by the time you've got from 100 to 80, you're rolling back out of the 60 back into the 100.
But we're not saying there's a speed limit. We're just saying there's a school ahead.
No, I'm saying for your variable 60.
Yeah.
Right?
But once where does it get to? So you have variable 60 and what cancels it at the other end?
Then you have to have a sign cancelling it, saying 100.
Does it have to say 100 or can it say open road speed?
It could say, it could
So we
say.
just have the open road say, and then they're not looking for that 100.
Offers in your face.
Mm.
But I think increasing, because at the moment we've got an approximate 400 metre reduction to 60. Is that going to be long enough for people to actually decelerate?
So
Yes, on
you've
that
got
road. Yeah, if you've got a
still
still
going
sign.
and then the sign is flashing and it's really
That-
obvious and it's.
And you get Yarko to sit out there for 2 weeks straight. And that's
That's
tops.
about the wrong distance. I don't know where it is in the school, the bridge is there. But that is, you wouldn't have a clue, there, and as long as it's 350 and 400, it probably would be.
That's Oripo Road.
That's
That's a kilometre.
So 250 to there, need to be what, 400, you say, well, you get away with 250. But they've got a school sign here, then you got your zone there, the school sign here.
I think this would be
Fine.
fine.
Yeah.
I'm talking about if it's that.
No, it's
No,
no, it's been there for
That's
60.
the big one,
Yeah, 16, yeah.
But like you said, Paul, put some, just a little bit of a notification, there's a school,
Yeah.
this is a school
Yeah.
zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine in the bigger room, I'll be happy with that.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
So what do we need to do with that? Are we making a recommendation for you guys to
Bring back
report
council.
that back to council? Or
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
enough?
And we can update the map to show both where the variable speed limit signage change will be, as well as some additional signage locations on that. And so, yeah, the recommendation the panel's making is for a 160 variable speed zone that is slightly wider than the current one, that to be determined on site.
Yeah.
one where you will see little toe rags too, Tracy, on the other.
Yeah. Great school, no count. I did have a question, but it kind of ties into preempting things. And so I kind of got it's been answered twice today in relation to that. It's the residential side, going up Race Course Road, which goes 30 to 50. That I was just wondering if the 30 could be extended just out beyond, just beyond that driveway to the church, like just beyond. So I guess, and to be honest, you're probably talking about 50 or 60 metres.
Yeah.
It's not that far.
The visibility is fine.
The visibility's all good.
We really did look at this one from the point of view of looking at a minimal change on race course.
Yeah.
Because of because of the limited use of race course Harvey.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, the flashing lights, because this is a flashing light site, it needs to be, again, we've got that 100 to 30 scenario, so it does have to lead people in.
And the school, I accept the school is well off the road. So it is, you know, it is actually.
So you happy with that then?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Tam? Yeah. Cool, right, Rebel College?
Okay.
Cool. Rebel College and point of primary school.
This is gonna reduce some, customer voice.
So one of the comments, and I guess I'll leave Andy to talk to this, is just around one of the comments was around closing the Molyneux Ave connection and extending that and keeping that 30 for the extent between the two schools of Molyneux. We had concerns around compliance of that, but I'll leave Andy. Do you want to just chat about that one a little bit more detail?
The variable speed limits, or the evidence currently points to really kind of compacting those areas up to where you actually need the speed control to be. There's a worry that creating a large chunk of Molyneux being under the variable that people won't understand, somewhere in the middle of driving along Molyneux between Barry and Antrim. I've gone past the school, and it is a better solution in this particular case to operate two zones. What will happen is they will have their timings aligned. So you're not going to have a situation where you're, even though Cromwell College has interesting operating hours, we've already done the work to make sure that you can operate those. Both sets of BSF signage operate at the same time and won't disadvantage anyone, specifically including travelling public.
Yeah.
So we have looked quite hard at that. And Barry Avenue, we just felt that you do actually have to go as far. We've tried to enclose as much with the Anderson Park access.
Yeah.
Kind of needing to be in there, I think.
Yeah.
Debbie?
So just one of the submissions mentioned lunchtime.
Yeah.
Have you guys got, my understanding was that it was start of school, end of school?
It's pick up and drop off. We can't.
You don't do
that.
Most of the schools, they're not allowed to leave at lunch anyway.
No, I know, but I was just thinking, is there something since my time? Has there been changed?
Turn around there and tell us if you leave at lunchtime.
I don't know go where I was going.
There is provision for other times at which there's sort of huge groups coming and going from the school, like if they were finishing early that day or different things like that, or to make those adjustments to the signs. But
Yes,
it is really it is the coming and going from school, but that can be quite variable also, if you know what I mean, in terms of if they were finishing at 1 today, the signs can be adjusted for a 1 o'clock finish.
So have that, Cromwell Rock still?
So this is another one that's reliant on state highway changes. So we would be advocating for the state highway to make their changes to enable us to implement the local road changes.
So just to answer your question, I got hold of Rebecca Tracy and in the initial pre-consultation, she's talked to the schools that are affected by the state highway. Either a combination of both email and verbally or one or the other, telling them that they may not see the changes until such time as NZ2O.
Yeah,
Do
okay,
these.
cool.
Yeah.
So they know.
They know, yeah.
Cool.
I just wondered there, like Branksome Street 2 and Edna Street, is it?
Should give you.
Is
Edinburgh Street.
those,
Branksome,
Yeah.
Branksome and Nedman.
yeah, is that necessary?
Well, it's actually that, I mean, you're still at the school frontage, Edmund, the Edmund Street intersection. No, what will probably happen there is, sorry, I don't know if there's one, we'll end up with static variables, on, at the intersection at Edmund, far enough back. Sometimes it's easier to just simply create the variable speed zone into a whole road, but it can be trimmed back
Right,
to, it can be trimmed back to suitable signage point.
yeah, because I just thought, well, we're,
Miles away from school, the other side.
yeah, miles away, I just.
The other side of the state highway and around the corner.
Is this, was any of this to do with feedback, pre-consultation, can you remember, QP?
No, it was more just trying to go to the extent at which Waka Kotahi changes would likely be, and it would pick up that street. And it was just around the signage requirements on that street, as in needing signage, or if you were turning in and out of that street, that they would be incorporated in the Waka Kotahi extent. I think it was just the colouring of those streets that were off that, and it just happened to be both of those off that, so it may not be the full extent of that street where that signage is, the final placement of that signage.
Yeah.
So that they know if they're turning on to the main road in that
Correct,
time, that they'll be subject to that.
Because they're very much doing it.
Correct.
Yes, yeah.
Same with those streets, like along Barry Ave and Cromwell as well, like those side streets, those sort of place closes that are dead ends.
Yeah. Go,
Maybe,
yep.
well, it's flat. So,
I guess there's only one question, and whether that relates to the school side is the extension of the 50K zone. You want to comment on that, Paul? QB?
Sorry, it's a small split.
Yeah, no, it's flat.
Yep. Andy actually had a note on that. Do you mind, Andy? You got that
Yeah,
note?
no, I'm quite happy to. Again, this one becomes a situation where you've actually got 100 to a 30.
Oh, okay.
It's the same as Racecourse Road.
Same.
It feels really crazy because I know
Understand.
that you will come out of the yard there. In fact, at that location, you pretty much drive through the yard.
Yeah.
On school road, pretty much.
That's right, no, I just,
Yeah.
I'm not hugely familiar with that.
No, because there is one comment saying, does this signal development? No, this is really about making 30 variables work where you've actually got
100K zone.
100K zones far
No,
on
understand.
the edge.
Similar to the extension in Ormako up Racecourse Road as well. That it had that 50 has to move out that distance.
money is out there, here's the go.
Yeah, of course.
Pretty right. Money.
So again, actually, we've got to, you actually keep forgetting how many are state highway impacted. There's state highway interaction again here. But it is back Caulfield Road. It's very, very hard to sign. You can't really sign Caulfield Road on the school side of the intersection because some of the need for that speed change has already happened. It's happening right on that corner of Northland and
I
Caulfield.
guess it might be good to get a steer whether or not there is value in completing this work this financial year before the state highway is done, or whether or not we wait for the state highway. I think we'll have noticeable level.
Well, I think.
That's status,
Yeah,
that's status quo there now, isn't it?
yes,
But nothing's gonna change other than state highway signs. Correct?
Well, the 50-30 area, but
Yeah.
Well, what are your thoughts on that? Wait till the state highway go in.
well, I think we're probably going to have to do the same for all of the schools, wouldn't it? That are subject to state highway.
We've tried to future-proof the design, but we can't, what we couldn't do, we simply couldn't preempt what they might consult on.
Yeah.
And they weren't ready to consult with us together.
Yeah.
And they haven't been, I'm not sure if there's any local authority where it's been.
So we basically do it out, but you might.
So how many other, district councils have the same number of schools that intersect,
I'll be quite a few.
main highways? Quite a few?
It is quite a few, but it is,
They're small, they're not massive schools in the grand scheme of things.
No.
no, we're starting to be we are reasonably special case in this. It's when you actually add it up and see, because we can't, there's actually nothing we can do at Terrace.
Yeah.
At all as a local authority. That is entirely state highway.
So we'll just do it, but
So we just have to support
Yeah, hopefully this,
getting things done.
yes, because what they'll want to do is they will want to sign as little as possible. They will probably go back to looking at something that says it's the frontage plus a distance, either side of frontage measurement. I can imagine that happening on Denalling, very much so, that they're going to take it's just going to be difficult. All of these things, they're always going to be difficult. Denalling will, without a doubt, get a proposal for consultation of a variable speed limit. They've got to then work out how close they are to that pedestrian crossing closer to the lawyers and the effects of the corner and how far they need to come along the other side before the intersection at a point where you can actually get the sign visible. Yeah.
At what point does the ministry get involved with education?
Well, that's an interesting, before they simply, they haven't, unless it's really perceived as a untenable risk. There have been some schools that have had real problems outside on their frontages and speeds and they've had to go there. I think it will be, we have to see setting of speed limits 2024 come out before state highway have prepared most of this already. It's just the difficulty is what you can't do is preempt their constitutive process, unfortunately.
so we have to move on regularly.
Yeah.
John's, this is about, to me, like forward. You've got a lay-by inside a road reserve and a gate inside. And that community board had that 50k zone right up to nearly that intersection.
Yeah.
The whole lot's been moved back twice.
Yeah.
And it came to the community board several times with the recommendation, because we had a police issue at some stage there. With the transition zone into Ranford, it got so far out of Ranford. We've got a lay-by inside the road reserve and the gate inside the school, a bit like Overkill, a bit like.
So there is one difference between here and Pulburn, in that Pulburn has been considered category 2, so it's a 60-kilometre speed limit. This has been deemed category 1 by Wakatai. I'm just trying to look for the precise criteria. If we could lobby, or if we chose to lobby that it was in fact category 2, then we probably wouldn't need to reduce the speed limit below 50 kilometres an hour. But if unsuccessful, then it is category 1. It does have to be variable 30, and then we do have to have a reasonable transition, like Miller's Flat and Racecourse Road, to go from 100 to variable 30, and that's your kind of 300-metre limit. I'll see if I can
So
find that.
how do we start that process? And do we leave it on the table until we've gone through that process. Because if we change it to this, we won't be able to change it back, will we?
All we're
The
deciding,
community board hasn't made the category, we haven't the category.
all you're deciding at the moment is to put it in front of council. If we can get more information
By council.
by the time it goes to council that says, actually, we believe this is category 2, then that might open up more options for you. But it would either be status quo or this, not an awful lot in between.
It's around how people travel to and from school is one of the make-up pieces for category 1 and category 2 school. And being on the edge of the urban environment, there is possibility, and I'm not 100% sure how people do come and go to that school, but from its locations, it's likely that there are people walking and cycling to that school as well. So that's where it comes into, yeah.
I think the, as far as the submission is concerned, the one that gives us a little bit more information is to do with signage. So they said there's no real signage around the school. Minimal signage, they say.
And the principal of the area school says it's too far to the south end. Yeah. That has been an issue at community board for a long time, is the distance from where the road starts. Where you're gonna go into 50. Because you're a long way actually out of the town. So I think we need to have all that, I guess we put that proposal now to. That's a bit like Fulburn, coming in to the zone is one thing, leaving the zone is a different thing.
I did just wonder, we'll finish this one first and then I have a question on Fulburn.
So do we just leave it as it is and then try to get it changed category? Because I should have, and whether we have that discussion tomorrow at the community board? What's involved with, making a, submission to get the category looked at?
I think, I'll speak honestly, I think your chances will be close to 0.
Yeah.
Their success with that, because there are, if you can demonstrate that no kids walk to school, then I think you would have a moderate chance of success. I think on the edge of an urban environment, that will be really hard.
The urban environment of Rainfield, number of 15 kids that walk to school, 15 kids at school. And an urban environment where you've got 1 million kids in Auckland is a bit different. But I know every time it's come up to us at the community board, it's always been, it's too far out, and then it becomes a policing issue as well, because the transition zone, you're not going to get ticketed, and some of the ticketing that's been happening in that transition zone has cost people their licenses and stuff like that, because it's gets really out in the country by a long way when you get to where your 50k zones.
Fines are fines, Joe.
We're here making the decision for a whole community, Damon.
Whole community of law-abiding citizens.
No.
Joe?
And that's where we put the sign that it creates the law or the unlawful abiding citizen.
Category 2 school areas will provide maximum 60 kilometres an hour. Now, I'll try and come back.
Yeah, just one of those, it will come up as a very tricky thing in our community if it goes that far back out, because we've done bring it back in several times. Anyway, that's just a very all sorts of people in our community.
If that category 2 is a maximum of 60, should Fulburn be lower than that?
If you would like to explore that opportunity, the 80k transition zone.
I know there's a lot of talk around, if you're coming from 100, then slowing down, but you're also expected to go from 100 to 20 to get around a parked school bus on the side of a road, which is terrifying when you haven't noticed from the person in front of you.
No, I agree with that. And that is really difficult. The 100 to 20.
You're at the top of
Yeah, but I just look at the vast majority, so you raise those issues around the likelihood of fatality with a pedestrian v car.
Yeah.
The vast majority of the vehicles travelling outside Fulburn School will be used as SUVs with a higher bumper height, otherwise known as kitty killer. Do we want to have them slowing down more? 60 is the maximum, not the
I thought, yeah, I was under, the impression that you had to do 60. Is 60 just a maximum?
That's what,
Yeah,
that's
just-
really-
The problem is if you go live, then we're back into that same issue where you.
But not a 50.
Zones and.
but not 50, because you do 100 to a 50 into a town.
It's
Maybe
around the
we-
guidance for compliance.
You can do a 50, but I haven't seen anyone do, so a 50 variable is possible.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anybody else doing them yet. It's moved. They've just moved around in chunks. I know the 30 is evidence based.
Yeah.
Some places have had to do 60 to 40 because that's the road layout that they've got and the speeds that they've been developing. So that's more common in Canterbury. The other end of 50s, reducing 50s being part of the variable is, it's not unheard of, but actually no, I can think of.
Well, especially if we've got those signs, either side, still zone, and then all of a sudden the next sign you hit is 50 and it's flashing, as opposed to 60. Shaving an extra 10k seems easy to do by signs and would make a substantial difference to the outcome if a child or other adult were to be hit.
If we could do 50, I'd be in support of 50.
And the school
If you're allowed to do-
for lower as well.
Can we do 50 if we can't do 60 on Mary Point?
No, but that wasn't being submitted on.
Wasn't a school.
It's not a school.
It's a school zone.
I'm not, CP, can you comment on that?
I think we were largely consulting on the extent when it comes to schools, not the speed. So I think on that basis, I think that is okay, but I'd like to confirm that as well. But I believe it would be okay because our school speed limit was around the extent, and obviously we're still within the bounds of our extent, and then the final speed limit is the recommendation maximum 60, but I think we do have the opportunity to make that adjustment on this basis.
Do we have to make that now?
Could you just come back to us?
Come back in there, implicit St John's School, we're quite happy with St John's School, unless we can get it changed to category 2, and then we'll have another one, correct?
So just want to clarify that. So for Paulburn School, the recommendation to council will be 50 on the basis of staff confirming that and the final extent of that zone. And St John's Ranfurly, you would like us to look at the transition zone length and the category nature of that school for the recommendation to council.
Yeah. Right. And that is the end of all of those. So now,
I just
I'll just make a couple more changes. Then I'll put them up on the board. We can have a look at them.
We still need to, there is on page 47 of the agenda, there is additional roads which come up that would be worth doing, just to run through of those submissions, acknowledging people taking the time to comment on those additional roads, and a couple of those being the Pies and Moorings development as well, which we can discuss.
So one of the questions was about 30k zones around kindergartens and early childcare centres. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are.
None of those children should be unaccompanied by an adult.
Totally agreed, totally agreed. But it's just, is that, I don't know, at what level do you?
I would suggest if you've got a 4-year-old walking themselves to kindy, that is a matter for around Tamariki.
Yeah.
It was, and it was,
The 6-year-old that's walking with them, though.
it was driven originally, this is not the best way nationally, the decision was driven by the fact that ECE centres can move, can change, can set up very quickly and easily, and they haven't really found a way. MOE schools could easily be labelled.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there are also kindies that have been in the same spot for 50 years and that sort of thing, but it's the difficulty became, then we're really with like Paul's homeschool sites.
Yeah.
yeah, so it's the complexity of managing the early childhood.
And they have a lot of their own health and safety policies that they have to comply with,
They
including
do,
for those at-home ones.
Exactly, I mean, and people go a long way to trying to accommodate those sort of things. If you think about the changes fundamentally that this council, they're quite a long way down the track, but the changes that were made on Bentry Street to make Alex Kindy work, and the changes that were made at the Best Start to make the Best Start work, and then you've got things like Dunstan Educare and the other one in the Power Street where they have to
Drive in.
drive in. So, I think it must be one of the hardest parts about operating an ECE site, and I do appreciate that it would be a nice sort of environment to have those included, but I think it's just at this stage, it's too complicated.
Well, I think these other submissions, the other roads.
Need to lobby government for speed limit for passing cyclists and horses on all roads other than state highways of 30 kilometres an hour. I don't think that's in our purview, was it? We can't do that. Earnscleugh Road from Hawksburn Road to Falling Road. Thanks, Rebecca. And there has been a bit of feedback and a bit of talk about where the 50k starts and where the 30k starts and where it changes at that top end of Earnscleugh Road. Have you guys had any other?
So my understanding is that is because of the walkway that's on the inside of the guardrail that goes right up there.
Yeah.
Is that, people and do use that up into that subdivision development in there, Tama.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's past that. Some of this comments in relation to past that where the 150k is of Earnscleugh Road and where that 50k sign is, and that is something that come through this, but has also that come through our previous consultation piece, and I think it is something that we will note to have a look at and consider in the future as part of future change. I think around the location of that, just on given the long length and compliance with that section. So we've just noted that, and we'll potentially look at bringing that back through future consultation.
Because that's something the police have made some inquiries about as well. Is the distance between those signs at the top of the hill.
So distance from the 30 to the 50 being quite long.
Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't had
100. So I guess if I can say to them, oh look, that's still being assessed and looked at as to what's the most appropriate option.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Anything else in those reports?
I guess by more is the, about the whole, talking about essentially a blanket speed limit of 40 around there, which we're not allowed to do blanket speed limits, but I think there may be certain exceptions that you can possibly do. But anecdotally, I've spoken to someone in Paisamore who lives in Paisamore, and they have a different experience to other submitters on this. They say 50 is fine because you can't do 50 in there anyway. However, it's a target, I guess, for some people. So it's whether if we were to ask the team to go and do another round of consultation specifically for Paisamoreans, whether we have any appetite for that. From what QP was saying before, it wouldn't be a huge cost because it could be done internally.
Because you could just do the people that live in there.
Yeah, yes. Could be a targeted consultation. Oops.
Or I guess the alternative is to delay it to a future round of speed limit changes.
Yeah.
As the two options.
But then maybe if that discussion came up about footpaths came up at the same time or before that, then it may make a speed limit issue irrelevant, or
So that conversation will be coming back as part of the long-term plan. So 6, 7, 8 months from now, we'll be having that conversation around.
Speed limits. Oh, that'd be good. Anything else?
I'm just going through these other ones. So
Quite a few about Pies Mornings.
yeah, right, that intersection, do you guys know if there's anything coming for the intersection of McNulty Road and the highway?
No, I don't know.
No, I'm not aware of anything there either.
Just in terms of safety, vehicles entering and exiting that when other cars are travelling at 100, yeah.
Intersection improvements.
Yeah,
Speed reduction.
Either speed or intersection, just when you've got
So
cars.
I know Waka Kotahi was, when they were originally coming to talk with us in November last year, were discussing that section of the highway reducing in speed. However, I'm not sure where that process is currently at.
They'll probably want to build a $200 million roundabout. Vincent Ward, Lex Gully, extending that along Springvale Road, Tracy.
No. I don't think there's any need to do that.
From where it is currently to the other side of Lex Gully.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's.
It's always been really difficult. It's actually, in the end, it becomes about 800 metres of dead straight.
Yes,
Dead straight, there's no residential,
no,
it's huge berms on either side.
Yeah.
Enough for quite a few horses,
yeah. You can be well off the road.
you can be.
There, not if you're on a road bike, obviously, but if you're on a road bike, you're on a road. Graham Perkins, that ties into that other one that I had from Collie around that change of speed limits heading out once you've gone over the Clyde Bridge.
Oh, yes, you're right.
At the top, that earns per road and driver education, which it's his job.
That's an interesting one, the next one.
What, we need to see more accidents?
No, where are we? I jumped to a little bit too far.
Drafted the reduced speed around early learning centres we've covered.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, I think, is covered off to an extent by the fact that if you have got a child 5 and under, you should be holding their hand when you're near the road, and that, I think, is a responsibility that needs to be on parents and councils.
Anything else?
And I'm just going through. That's the Sunderland, that's the kids' slide school, so we covered that. Alexandra, Longstadt Highway out on the south. Is that when they're heading, and they cross the bridge here and then heading up the hill and put their foot down? That policing, yeah.
Can I ask, do we ever pass on, I mean, there's a lot of stuff about compliance and I guess monitoring, which is not our job. Do we pass on
Yes.
this report to the police?
Oh, sorry, this report.
Well, or some,
The comments that relate to non-compliance in
Yeah.
specific areas?
in specific areas.
Yeah, because I mean, we certainly, when we get service requests, social complaints about speeding on our roads, we contact the police and say, hey, we've had this report come on. It's not the first one we've had. Any chance you can?
So, but in relation to, obviously, we've quite specifically targeted speed limits.
There's no reason why we couldn't actually,
Yeah,
even just send them this part of the report.
just the comments part,
Yeah.
especially in relation, just so that they,
Yep.
you know, that we're involving them in the process.
That other one from Clinton Wicks ties into what Brian came to talk about, the Molineux Park,
Yeah.
Molineux Statesman.
And just for those people who have actually asked us to, and also the school side of things, in relation to NZTA, how does that just go back to them as a written report, or do you mention it when you have your face-to-face meetings? How does that work?
All of the above.
All of the above?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So you are really reinforcing that
Yeah.
message
Yeah,
from the community.
and I think through this process and our and the follow-up at the council meeting, I'd encourage the panel and or in the council meeting as well to highlight the fact that we received a number of submissions regarding State Highway Corridor, and to I guess almost direct us to make that known to the agency and communicate through on behalf of the council.
Anything else?
I think just on that point, it will be really important that we are going to see that an awful lot of changes that are 100 to anything. If it involves State Highway, there will need to be that community element supporting it. I think we've seen the wording, we've seen the direction, that it will be where there is community demand. So it will be helping the community, our communities, get the messages across that they want on different sections of the State Highway. It's going to have to be asked for. It's not going to arrive in the way that it probably was maybe a couple of years ago, or it looked like it would a couple of years ago. It will have to be lined up and spoken for.
Right. Recommendation, Wayne. We go next part of it. George, can you read that?
I'll just blow it up. Oh, not that much. Yes, I'm blind, I'm not that blind.
It's good.
All right, cool. Let me just a moment.
Leave that.
Okay. So just to check, mostly D. So for Clyde, that was accepting those.
Yeah.
Clyde North accepting those. Alexandra accepting that line or the others. Same for Lauder.
Yeah.
Now for Petty Row, so the part of McSkinning Road that's indicated there, keeping Aiken Road as open road with a minor adjustment to speed at McSkinning Road.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. As on there for St. Battens and Glenbrians and for Oturihua, taking away the Hills Grant Road.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hills Creek Road, yeah, big part.
Yeah.
There, 111 Cromwell North. Keeping everything at 50, changing Partridge Road to 50, investigate traffic calming and shortcut road. Or is that something that's going to happen already? Paul? It's happened already. Should I delete that?
Yeah,
Delete
that's not required.
Yeah, I'll delete that. Cool. South. So keeping those ones, all those changes except for Pearson Road and Bannockburn Road.
Yeah.
Making a change for Keys and Moorings and Bannockburn and Harris at Winston High School and Sandra Primary at St. Gerard's.
Just noting, we need to note that the accelerating NZTA timeframes.
Oh, I think down the bottom.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So Clyde School accepting those with additional signage at the top of Whitby Street
And Sunderland Street.
and Sunderland Street.
If you can just slot in with additional advisory signage, because it could get confused here.
Do you want just advisory or static advisory?
Yes, you say it was.
Static advisory.
Yes.
Advisory. Whitby Street, so 320 Auburn. Keeping the existing speed limit with variable speed of 50 around the school with additional signage by McGarty Road. Again, the additional static. Yeah, with additional static advisory.
You don't need to say by the road. I'd just say additional static advisory signage at either end.
Yeah, at either end. Okay.
Yeah, or from either end.
So, word there.
You just missed signage.
Yeah. Our school, keeping that in as that. Same for Cornwall and from primary, and Roxburgh Area School and Miller's Flat, Manifesto Area School, St John's. So you're going to investigate whether it could be a category 2 school.
Yeah.
And also the limits of the variable speed zone.
I think we could actually talk to the category 2 stuff before you
Oh, yeah.
agree to that, if you like.
Just to clarify too, in case anybody else asks, Goldfield School's not included because it's already 30, alright?
Yes.
So, under the rule, which is the speed limit, setting speed limits rule, all schools are category 1 unless the RCA, which is us, reviews a school on a road under its jurisdiction and assigns it to category 2. So we can decide if the school is category 2. It is expected most will remain category 1, blah, 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 blah. Category 2 schools, blah, blah, blah. RCA should assign a safe and appropriate speed limit based on the road environment and presence of safety features that address pedestrian crash risks, such as separated footpath and cycle lanes, raised priority controlled pedestrian crossings designed for speed limits of 30 kilometres an hour or less, off-road parking and or off-road bus pickup drop-off facilities.
Was that every one of those?
If it's off-road and effectively all pedestrian risk is addressed, then I believe it is within our power to determine it is category 2.
Because no kids would be biking from that Ranfurly Paddy Road,
Right.
no walking. If they're walking or biking, they'll be on Alexander Street or.
Well, and they'll be on a raised footpath, but the drop-off point for cars, parents and buses is inside a concrete alcove.
And you might be able to comment on whether a footpath would need to be designated a shared path for legal bike use.
But I don't think, well, I don't know how many people would bike there at all, but the point being where the pickup and drop-off point is for that school is well on the side of the road and reserve, or well inside.
Yeah, I don't
This
think.
part here that we want to avoid, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more.
So we're happy with all these parts around here, it's just the extent of this part down into the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
So the issue will be, so what, given this category 2, would this be, so it's, what happens is the school is in the 50, the school is in a permanent 50, but it is just the fact that the school is the permanent 50. The solution around the school for category 2 would be no change, but effectively it's within.
Well, it'd be the status quo what we've got now, 'cause that's been passed by a community board over the last 20 years.
Well, given we've put everybody else into a variable 30 or 50, would we not do then?
Well, then it becomes whether you come from 100 to the 30.
Yeah.
And where all the 150, which might bring that point further into town. That's the issue, it's a distance out when you come from your 100.
But if we've designated it category 2, couldn't we do the same as we've done for Coolburn, and that you've got a school zone warning advisory and then a sign flashing saying you are going from 100 to 50
Yeah.
as you're entering town at the.
Oh, yes, you could.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good.
You're talking about is we're not changing the speed limits, but we're improving the signage.
Yeah, still have flashing signs.
of 50 kilometres an hour.
Yeah.
The 50 in school time would be extended.
Yeah.
But only in school
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
So
And it's school time.
essentially it's this
Same as Coolburn.
in school, yeah.
Just with that intersection.
It just
Yeah,
happens
so
one end is a town.
Yeah, ones, but
Yeah, so what do we need to present to the council meeting? Do we need multiple different options? Are we determining now that it is category 2?
So it would be council to make that call,
Decision.
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
This-
So I guess
Council
there'll
would need
be the existing option that is presented, and for that school, there'll be that option, and we will go away and come back if the council would like to make a decision to recategorise, and we'll give some information around recategorising that school, and a map.
would that just be an extra bullet point above what Wayne's got there, and a recommends that council recategorise St John's School as category 2?
I mean, maybe it's a discussion we have in ET time tomorrow at committee board.
Just remembering roads are a district function.
Yeah, so it's a
I mean,
matter
it's
for
just-
council.
Yeah.
So I
okay.
think above that one, too, above the St John's one, because we'd asked them to recategorise it first.
Yeah.
Recommends that council,
Recategorise, we'll look into recategorising.
then if you could just bring that information on what it means.
Right.
Two options,
Yeah.
one if you choose category one,
Yeah.
one.
And take a good look at your system where the limits are set now, because in the last 20 years I've been in community board, it's been a lot of work getting them to roughly where they're right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So as long as they're near enough to where you are, the signage to where it's right, I'm thinking that the levels where the signage is now is probably acceptable for the community. It's whether it just fits into that. But if we could work around that and bring, if we have to change the category 2 to allow that to stay the same, there's nothing unsafe to my understanding. All right, what have we got there now?
Okay, so I've got that, I know that's about wrong, but I can't see to sort it out. So yeah, so I basically changed it, the full be in one. So keeping the existing speed limit, variable speed limit of 50 kilometres around the school, additional static advisory signage at either end. Then we might need to work on this, I'm not sure. So recommending that any submissions regarding such highway corridors are sent to Whakatahi to add to their program, especially their schools one.
It's about
So that submissions, take out any regarding state highway corridors, we sent to the complaint and to the program. And then I will almost, put a new recommendation, recommends. In other words, send something to Whakatahi, so recommends
That doesn't what they
can prioritise their work around schools in this district to tie in with our program.
It will tie in because we'll have already made our decisions.
Decisions.
When they make their decision, we'll implement the applicable changes.
Tries.
So it's more,
So it's more us making a submission to
yes.
Whakatahi.
We've done
All
that.
right. Okay, so
Yeah,
that.
when you sort of stuff out.
that
Yeah.
made to Whakatahi to
Isn't
prioritise.
it called Trans New Zealand
Oh, I don't know, is it?
now? NZTA?
Yeah, but they have money to change some.
Prioritise.
Just so,
Well, the sign-
Is that,
was this name changed?
is that right? Is it? So that would be me. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Does that seem about right?
Yes, councillor.
Schools in Central Otago.
Yeah.
And then the final one, just noting that the Peter Moorings speed limits will come to a future.
Yeah. In discussion. Very good. So, we've got all people with that, roughly? So I suppose to start with it, section 24.1.3, speed limit changes in hearing report. Recommends that the committee receive, accept, and leave significant notes, submissions, and thanks all submitters for the contribution. Considers the submissions and decides that action should be taken. Recommends the council final form of speed limit plan, which includes proposed school and local speed changes as attached.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll move that. Someone said that?
Yeah, thanks.
Both us. Second, Taylor.
Second, Taylor, all those in favour?
Aye.
It's carried. Thank you very much, everyone. All good work.
Thank you.
Start.
Awesome. Safe roads together.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the application signed every